Have you ever felt like you were missing something but couldn't put your finger on it? No matter what you do, you can't seem to feel whole. It's like a piece of you got left behind somewhere along the way. Some people feel disconnected when they're alone, like when they're lying in bed and staring at the sky, even though everything looks fine on the outside. That's the truth. Most people feel like they have puzzle parts that don't quite fit together. To get through the day, they've buried their past, rejected parts of themselves, and stifled their feelings. There is a voice that says, "There has to be more than this, though." That voice is right too. It's not out there or something you have to earn, find, or fix in order to be whole. You already know it and are just waiting to remember it. You will learn tonight how Buddhism can help you get back to that inner home. You'll find the lessons, reflections, and quiet wisdom in this movie that can help you find a part of yourself that you thought you had lost forever. This isn't just a mental idea. If you want to stop feeling broken and start feeling whole, try these real-life tips and practices. So, make a promise to yourself before we start. Fill out the form below. Starting tonight, I return to myself. I am whole. You're not just writing a line. You're waking something up. More you say it, the more your heart will believe it, and you'll start to heal. Write it now, and let's get started. You have chosen to return to yourself, to stop looking for pieces and start becoming whole again. Now it's time to start where the pain quietly started. Not at first glance, more deeply. There were parts of the self that were sent away, not lost, but hidden. Shame kept them hidden, covered in sadness, feared to speak. This is where we start. Not by putting up, no, not by fighting, but by finally seeing. The kind of seeing that helps the most. There's pain that doesn't shout. It doesn't damage things or ask for help. It does nothing but wait in peace. Everyone goes through life claiming they've moved on while that silence stays hidden behind their eyes. But something still hurts deep down, not because of what took place, but because of what was never invited back. Self-compassion is more than just being kind to yourself in Buddhism. It's a way to get back home. Love that doesn't feel soft or fluffy, but care that stays with the pain instead of running away. A lot of people try to run away from the things they don't like about themselves. What went wrong? Those embarrassing times. The actions they feel bad about. They make a copy of themselves that sounds smarter, looks better, and is stronger. It's like armor for them. But underneath it all, there are parts that were rejected and left out because they didn't fit the picture. There is a bold idea taught by Buddhism. Those parts don't need to be fixed. People need to see them, heard, held. That's how things are done. It's not therapy. It's being there. Realizing in a quiet way that nothing inside you is broken. The shame that comes back to you every time you think about what you did back then. It is not a scary thing. It's a flight. Someone younger than you is still trying to tell people why it did what it did, but no one will listen. In Buddhism, being kind to yourself is not a nice to have. It saves lives. That line says, "I will sit with the part of me that other people rejected, even if it makes me feel bad." That's not weakness. This is power. Buddhists believe that pain starts not with what happens, but with how we fight against what is. Those are the parts of us that we try to shut down. There is a wall between who you are and who you were every time you say, "I shouldn't have done that," or "I can't believe I was that person." Buddhism, on the other hand, tells you to tear down that wall, not by force, but with kindness, by telling that part of yourself, "I understand why you did what you did. I can see the hurt. I understand the mess. And I'm no longer here to punish you." This is where back to being whole starts to happen, when you stop putting parts of yourself out to pasture just because they did something wrong. When you remember that even when you were at your worst, you were still trying, still breathing, and still wanting to be loved. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. Healing doesn't have an end date. The mind holds on to things that haven't been recognized. When you remember something from 10 years ago, it's not because you haven't moved on. It's because you haven't gone back to bring that version of yourself forward. Self-compassion, taught by Buddhists, says that forgetting doesn't help us heal. We heal by coming together. Meditation is one of the most beautiful things you can do, but not to calm your mind. Instead, you should let it talk, to let the memories come and not fight them, but instead look them in the eyes with a soft heart. Do not judge, not looking into, just looking. It's amazing what can happen when you treat a painful memory with kindness instead of anger. It changes form. It changes from a wound to a story, one that you can finally listen to without turning your head. Some teachings say the mind makes the world. If this is true, then the mind can also make the self, not by coming up with something new, but by including what has been left out. Sometimes we're afraid that if we accept the bad parts of ourselves, it means we're okay with them. But agreeing is not the same thing as accepting. Being aware of it, it means understanding. It's telling you, that part of me acted out of pain, not evil. This is when your heart starts to open up again. There are people who believe that compassion is a weak feeling, but real kindness is fierce, especially when it comes to yourself. The truth isn't hidden from it. The truth is in its hands, and it doesn't move. Metta, which means loving kindness, is a very important tool for Buddhists. It doesn't mean only loving the good parts, though. Being in meditation and telling the most ashamed part of yourself, "May you be safe," is what it means. Have a good time. Many times, may you be at peace. Until the shame stops trying to hurt you, it will sigh, get softer, and rest until it's done. It's not always quiet to do this kind of work. You cry sometimes. There are times when your chest feels tight. Memories can come back when you least expect them to. That doesn't mean it's not working, though. That's the body's pain leaving. That's the part of you that has been locked up beginning to think it might be safe to visit again. Tara Brach, a Buddhist teacher, talks a lot about radical acceptance. This is not the same as saying, "Oh well, it happened." This is when you say, "I see all of it. I'm staying with it." That's when healing starts, not when you try to get rid of what hurts, but when you just sit next to it and say, "I'm here now. I'm not going to leave you again." The idea that the self is not a set thing is one of the most important lessons in Buddhism. It's a river of knowledge that flows. Still, sometimes we block off some parts. We tell ourselves, "That version of me doesn't deserve to flow forward." But when you understand that even the worst version of you was giving it its all with the knowledge it had at the time, everything changes. It's not an excuse. It's an understanding. The wall between now and then starts to melt as you understand it. According to Buddhist thought, misery comes from aversion, which means avoiding what hurts. But being whole means accepting what you have pushed away. Not being linked doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It's because some parts of you have been waiting to be seen. The part that felt left out, the thing that went wrong, the part that stuck out, the broken part. They all don't want to be in charge. They only want to be seen. Once they have your attention, they won't hurt you as much to get it. Buddhist kindness is strong because it doesn't try to fix things. It doesn't try to fix what went wrong. It shows up to meet it. If you don't try to get rid of your pain, it will change shape on its own over time. It did so because you let it breathe, not because you pushed it. When love is used to deal with pain, it changes. At some point during your healing, you'll understand that you don't have to change the past. It only needs to be remembered in a different way, not with anger, not with a verdict. But please understand, when you can say to yourself, you were scared, when you were younger, you were by yourself, something inside you clicks back into place as you say, and I forgive you. And that click, that quiet click, is the sound of being whole again. You don't need to change who you are. You don't have to start over. You are not a house that needs to be ripped down and put back together again. You're like a house that's always been whole, but some rooms are locked. Rooms where many memories live, rooms full of scary things. There were rooms full of you that were too loud, too sad, or too lost. Now that you have self-compassion as a key, you can open those doors, to not judge what's inside, but to turn the lights back on. When you open some doors, they make a noise. Some fight back. It's all right. Don't be in a hurry. Buddhism isn't about how fast you can do it. It's about being honest. You're repairing something old every time you sit still and let whatever comes up happen. You're telling your heart, I'm ready to listen now. Hearts have been waiting for thousands of years to hear those words. What does it mean to feel whole again? It means you're not trying to hide anything inside. It means you won't feel like a memory is going to chase you when you're alone and quiet. If you trust yourself enough to feel everything, you won't break down. Not many people trust each other that much. But it's possible. It starts with a quiet breath and the choice to stay, not with a big choice. Each scar you have tells a story, but not every story has to end in pain. Some are meant to be lessons, and some things become holy when you look at them with kindness, not because the hurt was pretty, but because it's healing. When you stop trying to erase the past and start to hear what it has to say, wounds become lessons. The parts of you that hurt, they're not weak. They are ready, looking forward to the day you stop leaving them. The day you come back, I will wait for you with love, not shame. Today could be that day. Now, you can start to tell yourself what no one ever told you when you needed it most. You're still worthy. During this peaceful time and soft light, right now, especially right now, to be whole, you don't have to be perfect. You should stop acting like being whole means being perfect. Buddhism says that being whole means having nothing left out. That includes you who had doubts, failed, hurt other people, and been hurt. All of them are important to the story. The story is still being written. This isn't a trip to change into someone else. It's a return. As a reminder, get together. You can't be better than yourself, but with the person who has been waiting alone. all set to be seen. Get ready to be loved. Get ready to go home. When we go back to the parts of ourselves we had left behind, sit with them and show them kindness that doesn't ask for change, but just presence. Strange things start to happen. A soft falling apart. The version of ourselves that we've been protecting, changing, and hiding starts to slip away. As time goes on, the stories lose their strength. Feelings begin to flow more easily. After that, something even stranger shows up. Room. Keep quiet. Being empty. That's when most people start to feel scared, because they feel like something is missing when the noise goes away. But what if that feeling of emptiness isn't the lack of self, but the start of being whole? There is a message in Buddhism that is so strong that it has scared people for hundreds of years, while also healing them in ways that nothing else could. It's the lesson of nothingness. Not emptiness as in hopelessness. That is, not as empty or blank. When we look at Anatta, the ultimate truth, we see that everything we hold on to doesn't have a stable identity. For the head that wants to be someone, that may sound scary, but for the heart that wants to be free, it is pure freedom. It's like armor for most people. I am this. I am not that. This is what happened to me. This is what I became. But there's a hint of tiredness under all of that, because it's heavy to hold on. When someone holds on tight to the idea of who they are, life feels like a fight. But when that grip starts to loosen, not by force, but by understanding, something opens up. It starts to fall apart, the idea that one has to be a certain way, reach a certain goal, or fix a certain flaw. Not into nothingness, but into a fullness that you can't put into words, but can feel. That's the strange thing about Anatta. Form turns into light when you let go of it. When you let go of the need for identity to be fixed, you can flow through life like water. Believing that becoming a better person will make you whole is a subtle trap that lies in the spiritual road. A calmer self, a more aware self. But this soft effort is still there. It still rests on the false idea that there is a fixed you that needs to be fixed. There is no set self to improve, says Shunyata in a much more radical way. There is only experience that comes and goes, mood swings coming and going, feelings and thoughts coming and going. You can feel lighter when you really understand this, not as philosophy, but as fact. No amount of success or achievement can make you feel that way. People are scared of being empty because they think it means being no one. But what is being offered is not clearing the slate, the feeling of space, the room to be fully alive without having to act, define, or control all the time. When you look at Anatta, your feelings are free to move through you like wind through a tree. They no longer shape who you are. Anger comes and goes. Sadness comes, teaches, and goes away. Joy comes by, shines, and then leaves. Since there is no holding on to them, there is no pain in their leaving. This lack of anything is not cold. The opposite is true. It's warm because it doesn't need to judge. When there is no set identity to protect, the heart is like a sky that lets all kinds of weather in. Everything can be seen because there is nothing to hide. It's not the death of self, it's lying to yourself. Being sure that you need to be happy all the time. that you should always know. You need to be right all the time. In emptiness, there is no one to be ashamed of because there is no show to keep up. Some people get jnata wrong and think it means being cut off from life. But in truth, it's the closest connection to life. No longer having to hold on, you can finally touch things all the way. You don't have to answer when you listen. You don't have to own someone to love them. You don't have to say anything to cry, since there is no self to keep safe. Being aware of everything around you, awake and free, moving through each moment like a soft breeze through tall grass. You don't have to think about it to realize this. When you sit in silence for a long time, you can see what comes up when your mind isn't being fed all the time. And what comes up at first might be pain. For the mind will beg for something to hold on to, an item, thoughts, a thought, a goal. You can start to see what's going on behind the noise if you can just breathe and watch while they scream. And it's not more material that's behind it. It's clarity, clear, spacious, and friendly. To not fill the space right away takes guts, not to take another look at something else, but healing takes place there. There is no longer any need for the mind to fix anything. It doesn't want to be anything. It's only here, and the illusion of being apart stops when you are fully and quietly here. Separation from life itself, not just from other people. If you don't have a rigid self that stands out, life moves into you and you flow into it. And that flow makes me feel whole. The world is not erased by shunyata. It shows how rough it is. Things become clearer when ego isn't there to block them. Tea tastes more lively. The wind feels stronger. When a friend talks, it hits you harder. No longer do I think, what does this mean for me when I go through life? It can be seen, heard, felt completely. And when you have that full experience, you don't need to name or grasp anything, because the present time is enough. Many Buddhist masters talk less with words and more with silence for a reason. They don't lack words. It's because they know what they want to say can't be said. Not because it's too hard, but because the words are too strong. The jnata is also not solid. The space is big. It moves. It takes in air. It doesn't stick to anything, but holds everything. Being there doesn't mean being far away from the world. It means becoming one with it. When you let go of your sense of self, kindness flows naturally. It's not a plan, not as a set of rules for living, but as an easy way to show that you are linked. You don't have to push yourself to be nice. When you see other people in pain, you feel it as if it were your own, because there is less of a line between me and you. When you're empty, love isn't personal. It's very big. It has nothing to do with liking. You don't have to earn it. There is no one trying to stop it, so it just runs. Most of our pain comes from holding on to things like views, people, outcomes, and identities. Fear that without those things, there will be nothing left is what makes people cling. But when you let go, you find that what's left is presence, not nothing, a deep, wide, and still presence. Not only do you find peace there, but you also feel the strange fullness of nothingness, that which gives everything and doesn't ask for anything in return. You don't lose your heart when you let go. You still feel, you still care. But stop making jails out of how you feel. You no longer need everything to last forever. Stop trying to hold on to certain times, because you see how everything works. It comes into being, stays in being, and goes away. You stop being afraid of this and start to bow down to it, because it looks nice, since it's true. Stanyatta teaches you to hold on loosely, not because nothing is important, but because everything is going by so fast. So you enjoy instead of worrying. You take a deep breath instead of running. Instead of being in charge, you bow. When you bow, you connect with an old part of yourself. You can't master something that knows this life. You have to dance with it. You don't have to become a monk or spend decades studying the texts to understand this. First, take one breath. One moment when you stop thinking about what's going on and feel what's really there. That 1 second when you stop trying to be someone else and just let yourself be yourself. That is the place where the door opens, not with much work, but with freedom. You watch when thoughts come. You don't follow them when they leave. You feel when your feelings are high. You don't freak out when they fall. The way is to hold on and smile. You start to understand that you weren't broken. You were just hidden under a lot of noise. The layers are now coming off, and there is nothing missing below. Who am I? Is something that many people ask, and look for a good answer. To be free, though, quiet is the best answer. Not because the question isn't important, but because the asking goes away when there is space between it and the answer. There is no need to be a certain person in that place. There is only happiness in being. The pure aliveness of living without a reason. Stanyatta does not mean nothing. To be free from false stability is what it means. It means not carrying around the heavy load of me, mine, I must. It means being able to breathe without holding on, feeling without holding back, moving without fighting it. And when life is like that, everything is easy. It's not because the world changes, but because the way you deal with it does. You still need to do things. You still have plans, but they no longer show who you are. You don't have to fall apart if you lose. You can win and not blow up. You don't have to feel bad about taking a break, because you know your worth has never depended on what happened. It was never about becoming. Under the surface, it was always there, full and quiet. Being empty gives you this gift, the completeness that was never missing, but was just hidden. Ideas cover it up, covered by work, feared all over. And now, after the silence, not found by release, discovered by the simple act of not having to grab. That is why you shouldn't rush to fill the void when you feel empty. Take a seat, hold on, pay attention. It's possible that you're more whole now than ever before, not because of what's there, but because of what you've let go of. Something strange starts to happen when the hold on identity weakens and the space of nothingness grows, not just in the mind or heart, but also in the body. Changes in breathing. Shoulders get softer. A knot that was in the belly starts to melt. Suddenly it's clear that the body was holding on too, not just the head. Tension, tiredness, and a need to move around aren't just happening. They are the echoes of feelings and thoughts that were not dealt with or spoken. This is where the next level of wholeness shows up, not through more quiet, but by getting back together. Because you can't fully get back to yourself until you stop seeing your body and mind as two different things. People have a strange belief that the body is just a shell that holds the mind, which is the real soul. This belief comes from culture and habit. But this idea hurts people in a quiet way. They learn to push through pain and exhaustion, to punish their bodies when they don't do what they're supposed to, and not to trust their body's signs. Over time, people can't connect to their chest, belly, skin, or breath, so their heads start to move. Buddhism, on the other hand, says the opposite. This helps us remember that the mind and body are not separate. They're not two different things. Together, they make up one field of experience that flows, reacts to, and shapes the other. And you can start to heal once you stop separating things that were never meant to be split. Paying attention to the body is not an extra thing that Buddhists do, especially when they practice mindfulness. It is the main thing that they do, because every feeling is located in a different part of the body. Anger is hot, being sad is heavy, fear makes you tense. Joy itself moves and beats to its own beat. Mind is like the sky, and body is like the weather that lets you see it. Still, most people try to think their way out of pain. They use reason to figure out what is physical. While their muscles scream for attention, they talk to their minds. This is why a lot of people feel stuck. This isn't because their ideas are wrong, but because their skin hasn't healed yet. When awareness falls below the neck, wholeness starts to happen. When it starts going to the shoulders, jaw, and gut. When breathing isn't just a background thing, it turns into a conversation. In awareness of the body, you pay attention to every feeling. Feelings of tingling, tightness, pressure, and warmth are not happening by chance. It's all conversation. When you listen with your whole body, not just your head, you start to understand that your body has been talking the whole time. The quiet was always on your end, not theirs. Buddha always started his lessons on meditation with being aware of the breath for a reason. Not as a way to stay calm, but as a way to be present. The breath connects the body and mind. Thoughts form it, but you can feel it in your lungs. It is unconscious, but you can train it. It always takes place in the present. And when you pay attention to your breath, not to control it, but to know it, you start to come back together. As an idea, no. In a direct way, though, why make the body feel something it doesn't want to? Indeed, pushing is the energy that makes the split bigger. All that is asked is that you notice. See what happens when you just sit still and let your body tell you what it wants to say. You might feel a moving in your hands, something tight behind the eyes, a light touch on the feet. You don't look into it. It's not a name. You just accept it all as a part of you. That's fine. Not a puzzle. Just being there. The idea of embodied awareness is very important in Buddhist psychology, because awareness that only exists in the mind is separate, weak, and quick to respond. It turns experiences into ideas, but knowledge that sinks into the body is stable, warm, and rooted. It doesn't jump to conclusions as quickly. It stops judging the moment and starts to feel it. Being so in touch with what is that the questions go away on their own is where wisdom starts, not having the right solutions. Trauma also shows how important presence is. When we are in pain and our minds can't handle it, our bodies store it. This is why people often feel fear in their spine, worry in their stomach, or sadness in their chest. No, these are not metaphors. They are facts about biology. And getting your mind clear won't get rid of them. You have to feel them, been there, held, not just once but over and over, slowly and carefully. Buddhism doesn't avoid pain. It's next to it, one breath at a time, while the stress slowly eases up. Being able to live in your body without trying to fix it gives you a lot of power. To rest your body against your own weight, feel your own heart and say, "This is me too." Not the perfect version, not the spiritualized one. What moves under the skin is raw, tired, aching, buzzing life. When you accept something in this way, it breaks the spell of separation. What the world taught you to disconnect from is brought back. When the mind and body come back together, even moving can be a form of meditation. Moving slowly, feeling the ground under my feet, moving, putting. Every step is a moment of coming together. Not a way to get somewhere, but a way to get back, to come back to this step, this breath, and this body. Walking meditation isn't about being slow, it's about getting close to yourself. And you can't be close when you're split up. Even food changes when you're there. How you eat as well as what you eat. Meals are just a chore when your mind is elsewhere. Even though the body eats, it is not fed. But if you stop, breathe, taste, chew, and really feel what it's like to be fed, digestion becomes more than just a physical process. It becomes a holy one. Rest is the same way. With sleep, by touching, with everything that the body does, it stops being routine and turns into a rite when it is done with awareness. A lot of people have illnesses that are hard to see, like fatigue, inflammation, stress, and worry. However, these signs are often caused by the same thing: a lack of relationship, a body that wasn't heard, a mind that is not fixed. And medicine or emotional restructuring don't always help people get better. It starts with 5 slow breaths sometimes, when someone puts a gentle hand on their heart sometimes. "I'm listening now" is sometimes all it takes. The body doesn't weigh you down. It's a gate, a way to get to the deepest kinds of present. Things change when you stop seeing it as a problem and start seeing it as a helper. The pain gets less intense. It gets more pleasurable. Moving turns into grace. Being still is good for you. You are no longer living as 2 separate beings. You are now living as one. Position is important too, not as a show, but as a message. Your mind gets a message from the way you sit, stand, and walk, straight and not stiff, relaxed without falling apart. No, this is not just the middle way in terms of thought. When the body is in balance, it shows that it is alive, with honor of being open. When the mind sees this, it starts to think the same thing. As taught by Buddhism, the body is like a temple. However, this doesn't mean it has to be perfect or spotless. It means that it is holy because it is temporary. Since things will change, because it gets old, because it will come back to earth someday. So each breath turns into a bow. Every feeling is a gift. Every time you are aware of something, you come back to the altar of now. The body scan meditation is one of the most healing things you can do on this road. Not for fun, though that could happen, but to meet again. being aware of every part of the body, one place at a time, from the feet up to the head, with no goal but to be there. Don't judge, don't fix. Getting to know each area like an old friend. There may be nervous spots. Others are dull, some still living. Everyone is welcome. The get-together is for everyone. Gratitude doesn't come from being told to be thankful. It comes from making touch. Really feeling your lungs work, your hands hold, your legs carry, and your heart beat, you realize how much of your life is happening without you being able to control it. And when you realize that, you feel grateful, not out of duty, but out of awe. The body is still showing up, even after everything it's been through. Continued to breathe, still waiting for you to come back. When you trust your body, you sleep better. When you're not judged, the pain goes away. As soon as you breathe in, your anxiety goes away. This is not a philosophical theory. It is a truth that you can live by. And they don't start with a lot of work. They start with just looking. The bellies rise and fall, having air touch your skin, the sound of breathing going up and down the nose. These are doors, always open, always ready. When you connect with your body, even strong feelings become easier to handle. You learn to ask, "Where is this felt?" instead of getting lost in your thoughts. And you breathe there, and you get softer there. The storm slowly goes away, not because you were in charge of it, but because you stuck with it. It knew it didn't have to scream to be heard anymore. You don't have to force the mind and body to work together. They're already joined together. The trick is to think that they are different. The practice is to stop giving that illusion any weight. To live not as a head with a machine connected to it, but as a full presence that breathes and feels. Whole, not just because everything is fine, complete because it doesn't leave anything out. Don't forget this truth as you rest tonight. As your body sinks into the couch and your mind starts to wander, catch your breath. There's no space between your spine and your thoughts, your hands and heart, what you know and your cells. It's all one field, one being there, not split up, but one self. A strange kind of clarity starts to show up as the body softens and the mind settles into it. Thoughts, feelings, and sensations that used to feel different are now moving in sync. It's not a mental understanding, it's a quiet awareness. No longer does the mind float above life. It is now a part of it. And when this happens, something more important starts to come apart. The voice that tells everything over and over again starts to lose its hold. The reasons for, why they are right. The voice inside. What makes you who you are and how you do what you do. And there's silence in both the body and the story for the first time in a long time. Because health isn't just about the body. At the point where identity isn't defined by what hurt, it starts. When you need a story all the time, it gets really old. About having to always tell people who you are, where you're from, and why you do the things you do. It's not enough for people to just remember the past. They think it makes sense to not feel so lost. But the story turns into a jail after a while. It's not because it's false, but because it's not full, but it's taken as true. It's been said so many times that it starts to seem real. This is my story. The story of my pain, my stay alive, mistakes I made, the person I am. Buddha, on the other hand, asks in a gentle way, what will happen if the story is stopped? This doesn't mean letting go of the past. It means going beyond the limits. It means not having to be the hero, the victim, the broken one, or the one who got through it. It means understanding that the past shaped you, but does not own you. Some strange things happen when you stop telling the story over and over again. You start to get a sense of what the words mean, the real feeling that can be felt without a name, the air being there, the life that goes on after the story is over. Buddhist beliefs don't say that memories are bad, but they do ask you to look at its limits. The story self is not who you are. It's just the part of your mind that makes sense of everything. It serves a purpose. Telling stories, sometimes useful, but it's not always right, and most definitely not always nice. It makes every mistake into proof that you are not good enough if you don't stop it. Every loss into who you are. Every experience turns into a part that needs to be played forever. The truth is more simple, though. You're not the story. You know what the story is about. To the story, you are the space where it starts and ends. Giving up on the story doesn't mean you don't care about it anymore. It means getting free. Free from having to explain yourself. Free from having to explain why you're still hurting. Not having to worry about how other people see them. A lot of people aren't hurting because of what happened. They're going through what they told themselves it meant. Mind tries to keep itself safe by giving pain a reason to exist. But pain isn't always bad. It doesn't need a title around it. It doesn't have to be a name that people follow. This doesn't mean that history is false. It's going back to the present. You can see how little is wrong in this moment when you sit with your breath and feel your body rise and fall without thinking about anything. This is not the past. There is no need for the name. You're taking a breath. You're sitting down. You know. That's enough. That's it. From this point on, you can see that peace wasn't about fixing the past. It was about letting it go. It's loud because the story self wants to feel safe. It needs to know who it is. The truth, though, is that the self is not set in stone. It moves freely, changes, not solid at all. And that's not scary. It's freeing. Since the self isn't real, you don't need to defend it all the time. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't have to stay in pain just because it's part of the story. You can just live without a story, not a summary. Breathe, walk, make noise, and be quiet. But that doesn't mean we can't learn from the past. It means that there is less learning. It takes on a body. You know the lesson, so you don't need the name. The story might come back. Now you see it for what it is. Just words, just some thoughts, going by like clouds. You, the awareness that lies beneath them, stay the same, not shook. There is an ease to people who don't need to tell a story anymore. They don't try to show off. They don't try to explain. They don't talk over their presence to give answers. They're just there, completely. They can change because they are not tied to a story. Feel free to answer. Free to love without having to guard a weak personality. This is who I am, the story says. Is that so? Asks Buddhism. It's not an argument, it's just interest. A gentle ask to take another look. To ask, what will happen if I stop saying this over and over? Things that will last forever open up in that space. A peace that you haven't won, a silence that doesn't depend on how things are resolved. It's the area that's always been below the story, ready for you to come back. When the story starts to fall apart, you might feel sad. That's fine. Your safety has come from holding on to your personality. It was how you made sense of everything going wrong. It can feel like you've lost something when you let it go. Not you, though. It's the cage you're giving up. What's left is so much bigger, more open, more alive. You start to see how much of your time and energy went into practicing, editing, and sharing the story again. That energy is back now, to life, not to a part. It's not about not having a past. It's about not being summed up in it. There isn't one part that sums up the whole book. Not all pain leaves a scar that lasts a lifetime. Things just take place. After that, they end. And putting them down again gives yourself room to feel something else. Something not changed. Something real. Meditation can help, but not because it gives you new ideas, but because it separates you from them. The story starts to play, but you don't follow it. Instead, you watch. You take a deep breath in and out and say, "Ah, there's the voice again," over and over, until the voice stops. Not shut up by force, but by not being heard. It's okay to still feel things about the story. You can now feel them without being them, though. When you cry, you don't have to be the one in pain. You don't have to turn happiness into a win to feel good about it. Moods come and go like rain on a roof, fully felt, gone on its own. When the story loses its hold, not because of forgetfulness, but because of presence, this is what heals. The story also makes relationships softer when you let go of it. You stop expecting other people to do the things you've asked them to do. You should no longer defend your part. People no longer look like they did in your story. You start to see them as they really are. The conflict ends. Kindness grows. It's because you're no longer stuck in a play that everyone else is sick of. To love yourself more deeply is sometimes to stop telling the story, to keep quiet, to take a breath, to feel the body, and to say, enough. Not because you've fixed the past, but because you're not making it happen right now. The story might come back. It's all right. You talk to it like it's an old friend. You don't let it move in, though. I see you, you say, and I'm still here. That quiet knowledge is who you really are. It's not the character, it's not the story, but the place where everything is kept. Now, from this place, where there is no pressure, no past, and no performance, the path starts to emerge again. Soft. Hold on. No cost. A deeper kind of silence comes in when the need for a story goes away and identity isn't based on old hurts or other people's approval. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of coming. There's no longer a need to be someone or to be seen a certain way. And somewhere in that area, somewhere old, is moving beneath the noise. A silence that stays the same. There is an existence that is not affected by the past or the future. The next step on the road is to a safe place, not to a better version of oneself or a polished identity. It's not a place in the real world, but a much more holy place inside you that nothing can get to unless you let it. The safe place inside. Buddhism doesn't see shelter as a way to get away. There's no need to hide from life, leave the world behind, or act like things don't hurt. It's not true at all. To find safety in the Dharma, you have to look inside yourself, not to get away from the storm, but to find the part of you that can stand it. Not frozen, not dead, but it's clear, held down. Hold on, because there will be loss, there will be betrayal. It will be confusing over and over again. All of that, though, can't take you away from your own heart unless you let it. This safe place won't be built quickly. It's slowly learned through practice, by being still, around the times when everything around you falls apart and you have to go inside. The outside world can take a lot of things, like your image, your relationships, your health, and even your safety, but it can't take your ability to handle this moment. You have the power to do that. You no longer feel like life is happening to you when you remember that. You start to feel like all of it can fit inside of you. Dharma is not an idea. It's not a set of rules or ideas. It's like a mirror that shows you your own freedom. It tells you that pain is not a punishment, but a sign, a call to come back. Every painful moment is an offer to come to the safe place, not to fall apart, but to straighten up, to meet life from a different point of view, not to run away from it. A point that doesn't shift. A lot of people look for safety in other people, in jobs, in relationships, and in accomplishments. But safety built on ground that isn't stable will always make people afraid. If your peace is tied to how other people treat you or how well things go, it will never stay. When all the outer scaffolding falls, what's left is the haven. In times of sadness, it's the stillness, the knowledge that lies beneath failure, the breath that stays the same even when everything else falls apart. When someone you love is hurt or rejected, your mind starts to race as you look for someone to blame, something to fix, or a place to run away to. But running won't get you to the safe place. You can find it by sitting down, by taking deep breaths, by not putting out the fire, they let it burn. When you stop trying to drive the rain away, you see that it's not you. You are the mind that sees it go by. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the three places where Buddhists can find safety. But these aren't images from outside sources. The Buddha is your fully awakened nature. In and around you, the Dharma is the truth that is always coming out. The Sangha isn't just a bunch of people. It's the field of present that shows up when you give your life your full attention. I no longer put my faith in chaos, you say when you take shelter. I believe in this road. I believe in things that go beyond thought. This trust isn't blind. It gets bigger every time you make it through something you thought you couldn't. Every time you breathe, you lose something. You choose not to completely close your heart every time you are hurt. These times are holy, not because they make you feel good, but because they show that you're stronger than you thought. Every time you face pain without making it your character, the refuge gets stronger. No one can give you or take away your inner haven, which is one of its beauty. It has nothing to do with language, society, or faith. It's in the stillness of your breath, in the quiet of your back. Let yourself just be in the place behind your eyes when you close them. It's not something you make up. It is something you find. At first, you might not believe it, especially if you've learned through life that safety is never a given. You can look for proof that it's real. But the proof is always the same. You feel the present moment when you stop trying to be somewhere else and take a deep breath into it. Not always in a striking way. It's not always obvious. It gets softer in the belly, having less thought noise, a brief moment of peace. That's it. That's the door. When you feel pain, your first instinct is to fight it. The Dharma, on the other hand, tells us to bow instead, not due to loss, but out of respect, saying, "This is also part of the path," is how you get to the refuge. Life is no longer a fight for you. You're going with the flow. Don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" And then you ask, "What can I meet here, please?" The shelter doesn't do nothing. It doesn't wait for things to get better. It's silence that moves. It's choosing over and over to be present in this moment instead of freaking out. To believe the breath more than the story. To stay away from loud things and close to what's real. After a while, this decision feels right. You begin to seek awareness in the same way that you sought control in the past. Thoughts don't stop in the haven. Feelings don't go away, but they lose some of their power to define you. You start to understand that you are not your fear, anger, or sadness. They move through you. You are the one who sees without making any rules, and what you saw is the medicine. Not because it changes how you feel, but because it keeps how you feel stable. Outside, things may still be a mess. There could still be broken hearts, but it doesn't destroy you in the shelter. You're moved, but not broken. Even though you cry, you're not broken. You're not lost, but you do feel lost. Because there is something in you that is rooted in truth, not in control or avoidance. Truth is the only place where peace can live. Taking safety is something you do more than once. It is a habit, as a reminder. That's what you do every time you return to the breath. You're making it stronger every time you wait to respond. Let go of the need for answers and choose to be present instead. This is a step back inside. It turns into a home you never left instead of a safe place you run to. And maybe the most beautiful thing is that once you find safety in yourself, you start to help other people find safety as well. Not by giving them advice or fixing their problems, but just by being there with them. When someone doesn't need to fix them, they feel safe. Who is brave enough to sit quietly and give space? What a gift it is to walk this path. Your healing makes it possible for others to feel seen. It's loud out there. It will try to get you to leave yourself all the time. It will tempt you with parts, arguments, identities, and other things to do. But the Dharma gives a different kind of power, not the power to rule, the power to stay in the middle of everything. You are free when you no longer need security from the outside because you have found something inside that can't be shaken. This shelter doesn't have a badge, not a title. Do not applaud. You'll know when you feel it, though. When you're sad and a part of you starts to smile. In times of stress, taking a deep breath can help things calm down a bit. When you understand that you only need to come back, not win or get away. You do, over and over. No matter what was lost. It didn't matter who left. This safe place is still here for you, no matter what in your life didn't go as planned. Peaceful. Hold on. Waiting. You are already inside as soon as you remember it. You can do it without asking. You don't have to work for it. Take a deep breath. Just take a seat. Stay put. And the journey goes on from this holy spot, not to get away, but to get deeper into life, with an open heart, a clear head, and a presence that knows you are already home, no matter what happens next. Once you find your inner refuge, that place inside you that stays the same no matter what, something changes in how you hold on to pain. No longer is it seen as something to hide or get rid of. It turns into something to listen to sit next to hold gently without pushing back. Still, sometimes the past comes back to haunt you, those cracks, those broken pieces, those old memories that never really went away. The next lesson is taught in a quiet way. What if the cracks are not flaws, but holy? If the broken parts aren't mistakes, but where the gold should be, what then? As part of Zen, people learn the art of kintsugi, which means fixing broken pottery with gold. The break is shown instead of being hidden. The damage is not hidden. Instead, it is praised. The crack turns up in the story. Even better, it turns into the most beautiful part. The thing is not thrown away. It's fixed up again. You shouldn't act like it never broke. Instead, you should respect the break itself. It's not just art. It is smart. It's a way of seeing things. In this way, healing is not about getting back to the way things were. It's about changing through being there. To be whole, you can't go back to the person you were before the pain. It's about becoming someone who has been through it and is still standing, but with more kindness, light, and depth. The cracks don't mean the end of the story. They mean the start of something better. Being aware of kintsugi means choosing to see your scars as holy connections rather than flaws. A lot of people feel bad about their past. They try to hide it very well, with care and perfectly. They live their lives as if the cracks don't exist. But this work is wearing me out. They know deep down that the pain hasn't gone away. It's just been hidden. Buddhism says that hiding doesn't help you get better. Denial makes space between us. But presence, real presence, is the first step in making things better. The parts of yourself that hurt you start to feel like they belong when you stop being afraid of them. When you understand, you stop making a wall between the past and the present and start to break it down. Being aware of kintsugi means doing something different from what the world tells you to do. It doesn't want you to fix yourself behind closed doors. Instead, it wants you to show up as you are and say, "This is what I've survived. This is where I broke. That's how I've been fixed." You don't have to make your pain seem worse. It has to do with being honest with honor. The truth is that every hurt you have made you who you are, and wounds don't make you tougher if you take care of them. They let you in. They turn into doors. It has a quiet power to be known for your past. There is no need to be sorry or get attention. Instead, you should honor the road. You don't have to tell everyone everything. You no longer need to hide from yourself. You can look back on what happened with kindness instead of fear. "Where did I break?" is something you can ask. Then he asked, "How did I get back up?" That's where the gold goes. Not at first glance, but deep down, in the cracks and joins, where things used to break apart but still got put back together, there is something. Mindfulness practice turns into a way to find these golden lines. When you sit with your breath, you're not running away from your pain. Instead, you bring it to light. Not in a bright light, but in a soft glow. You're telling yourself, I don't have to be whole every time I break. That line can change everything about how you live your life. It means that getting better doesn't mean changing into someone else, but becoming more of yourself. From this point of view, wholeness is not a smooth surface. It has a feel. It goes deep. There are stories in every part of it. There's no need to delete the information. You just need to look at it differently. Eyes that don't move. Seeing eyes that know scars are not embarrassing. They show that you have changed. Seeing your own scars in this way changes how you see the scars of other people as well. Don't judge people. Don't compare things. You start to understand the burdens people carry in silence. Being aware in this way makes it easier to be compassionate. You don't rush other people through their pain because you've been through it yourself with compassion. Stop telling them to get over it and stop trying to make things better. Like you've learned to do with yourself, you just sit with them. Being aware of kintsugi changes more than just how you heal. It changes how you love too. People don't have to be perfect anymore. All you need is for them to be real. People who practice Zen say that you can never really lose anything. It was only changed. It is possible for pain to become part of learning. Even losing someone close to you can wake you up, but only if it's fully met. It should be done with respect, not resistance. Cracks aren't a big deal. They're maps. They take you back to the most important places that need help. You might start with yourself when you do loving kindness meditation. Some of you feel weird when you say, "May I be well?" because you think you have to work hard to earn that gift, that you need to first fix yourself. But if you practice from the point of view of kintsugi, you start to bless the broken parts as well. May all of me be well, you say, even the parts I tried to hide, especially those. Then something starts to change. The heart no longer needs to be persuaded, it only gets softer. It's important to use the image of gold here, not because it costs a lot, but because it shines. Light can get in through the cracks in your body, the times you broke. They let more light in than the others, and they start to glow if you stay close to them with space, breath, and kindness. Not perfectly, but honestly. People often think of getting back to who they were when they hear the word healing. The goal is not the old self, though. The goal is to work together, to get all the pieces, even the ones you turned down before, and put them back together in a different way. More powerful, better, smarter. You don't have to look like your old self when you change shape. It's okay to be different. You can have unevenness and still be whole. The mind might not want to do this. It could say, "But won't I stop growing if I accept my scars?" No. Giving up is not the end of growth. It's the start of real growth. No longer needing to hide or act, you have more energy to move around in real life. All of you will grow with it, not just the parts that look good in public. Being aware of kintsugi changes how you feel about time as well. You stop rushing to get over it, and you start to accept that the healing process will happen in its own time. Some cracks get better quickly, some take years. It's all right. The gold will show up when it does. The only thing that's needed is that you keep going. Remember to breathe. Keep coming back. You don't have to push the fix through. You just have to keep taking care of the pieces. Honoring can also mean taking a break. The mending process is not always going on. It's partly quiet. It does less in some ways, not doing it. Letting your mind and body breathe while you sit still with your hands in your lap. You are still healing at that time, putting down gold still. It's okay if no one sees it. There is beauty in being strong and quiet, in the parts of you that didn't accept praise, in the strength that wasn't written about in your history. That is also gold, not flashy, not too loud, but true. It changes the way you walk when you start to look at your life this way. You treat your scars with the respect of someone who knows they are holy. People will still try to sell you perfection. For now, it will still reward showing up. But your practice goes further than that. You learn to see what's really going on. You learn to respect what is real. And when you bow, you become strong. Not because you can't lose, but because you don't expect to fall apart anymore. Every part of your story fits, not as proof that you failed, but as proof that you came back. You're not the same person who broke. You held the pieces together, softened, breathed through the pain, and chose to be present over performing. And making that choice over and over is what finds the gold. While you sleep tonight, feel your body weight supported by the bed and your breath rise and fall in a quiet beat. This is your chance to feel the joins. Not the pain, but the proof. You're still here. You're still whole. It's not that nothing broke. It's that you came back. You're still coming back. With each breath, a new thread is added to the golden seam. From this place of respect, quiet honor, and beautiful floor, the way opens up again. One more step, one more layer, one breath closer to being whole in a way that includes everything and doesn't hide anything. Something soft starts to settle after you learn to see the beauty in every crack, and that even your scars can shine without having to be hidden. Not as an end, but as a short pause. It feels like all the fixing, organizing, and inner work that seemed like it had to be done is becoming less important. Not because it's healed, but because it doesn't need to be pushed in any further. Doing changes into being. Instead of fixing things, we can now rest in what is. What if the last step toward wholeness isn't more work, but the total cessation of all work? This is the next door on the path. The idea of Wu Wei, or not doing, is very important in Buddhist thinking and Taoist teachings. Not being lazy, not caring, and not giving up. It's the skill of going back to what comes naturally without thinking about it. It's the silence that lies beneath strive, the clarity that's not under control. It's not about giving up. It's about giving in to the smarter part of you that moves through you when your mind stops trying to drive everything. A lot of people work hard their whole lives. Try to get better. Try to get better. Try to show how valuable they are. When they wake up, they have lists of things they need to do, not just for other people, but also for their own hearts. They think, I'll feel whole if I just fix this part of myself, master that habit, and read one more book. But Buddhism asks a very different question. What if being whole doesn't come from doing more, but from doing nothing at all? In this case, doing nothing does not mean giving up duty. It means letting go of the slight stress of always having to become. Being aware that you are already what you're trying to become is what it means to rest. that the peace you're looking for is below the search, that the voice that won't stop talking hides the silence you want. When you stop trying to fix things, you find return instead of failure. Getting rid of the need to improve yourself is a very helpful thing to do, because that need is often a sign that you don't think you're good enough yet, that you shouldn't be the way you are right now. And the inner wheel keeps turning because of that idea. You start to taste a stillness that doesn't ask you to be someone else when you stop, not just physically but emotionally as well, and stop looking for the next answer. There is life in this silence. It's living. It has lots of room. It lets you be here and now without any conditions. Indeed, that is what Wu Wei is all about, acting in line with the present moment without pushing it, without trying to trick, without fighting back. In this way, not doing anything is not inactive. It's very open to receiving. You open yourself up to life more, not less. You stop trying to fight it and start to feel it moving through you, leading you in a way that is much smarter than your mind can control. This is where the real change starts in meditation. At first, many people have to work hard to sit down, making an effort to focus, trying to pull it together, making an effort to become spiritual. But trying gets old after a while. The breath is just being watched. It's okay to have those feelings. The moment is just met. That's when the deep drop takes place, not into nothingness, but into being there, into a state of mind that doesn't need to hold on. That keeps an eye on everything that happens without getting caught up in it. It's not about giving up your hopes and dreams. It means letting go of the part of you that thinks you have to work hard to get peace. It's about getting rid of the idea that you have to go through pain to earn the right to rest. Doing nothing is the same as going back to the beginning, the spot where the breath just runs. In the space between thinking, healing takes place. There is nothing missing because there is nothing being chased. Being still makes most people feel uncomfortable because it makes them think about themselves. The quiet shows what the effort was trying to hide, getting restless, feeling guilty, unfinished sadness. But here's the miracle. When those things are faced with knowledge alone and no plans, they start to fall apart on their own. They are already broken up, so you don't need to do that. You don't need to name them or fix them. You need to stay. Because you stayed, you came back. This is the rule that nature follows. The trees grow on their own without trying. The sun shines, not because it has to. The river just runs downstream without stopping to think. This is not being passive. Trust this. This is being in tune with what can move through you if you stop stopping it with junk in your mind. Like, this way of being changes everything, even love. When you stop trying to change how people see you and what happens, and when you just sit there without defending or persuading, you become attractive. Not because you've done something great, but because you still are. And the quiet makes other people feel safe. It makes room for something real to come in. Being still is another way that intuition talks. It's not through hard work, but through silence. Not by making plans, but by being there. It comes up when there's room for it, the next step, the right word, the needed break. You don't have to understand everything. Being still is all it takes to hear what already knows. This is not the same as being tired. Repair is what it is. It's not that you're too tired to try, It's that you finally know you can't go any further. That the pushing was what kept you from getting there. Your shoulders drop when you stop pushing. You take deeper breaths. Your mind moves slowly. Life feels close again in that place. The method is easy to follow. You sit down. You take deep breaths. You don't change anything, not because it's great, but because it is. You don't run away from pain. You don't hold on to the comfort. You don't try to find knowledge. You just let everything happen while sitting in the middle of it all. This letting go opens the door to wholeness, not because it gives you something new, but because it shows you what was there all along, hidden under the trying. This is what the old masters meant when they talked about the way. Not a road to walk, but a place to come back to. There's no need for you to earn it. You need to stop running away from it. It's not far to the way. It's just the next breath you're ready to fully feel without making any changes. And in that moment, there is no doing. Being starts. Even what people do changes from this spot. You still move, talk, and pick, but the way you move is different. Alignment, not worry, is where it comes from. It comes up easily, without any resistance. It's more like being held than pushed. Life will get messy again, but there will still be silence underneath, since you now know how to get back. Not by hard work. By giving up, though. This message is very different from what people usually think about value, which is based on how much they get done. You don't have to work for your spot, it says. You don't need to show your worth. Being whole doesn't mean you have to always strive for more. You're already enough, already here, already awake, even though your mind is making noise. Just take a break to remember. And yes, the mind will fight back. You're wasting time, it will say. It will freak out when it doesn't have a job. But let it happen. Watch it like you would a child whining before bed. Let it wear itself out. In the stillness that follows, feel what has been there all along, the huge, quiet, living presence that only wants you to stay. In reality, stopping trying to heal is often the best way to get better. As soon as you stop thinking about your cuts, when you stop making a project out of your pain, once you no longer feel the need to change who you are, the nervous system calms down at that point. When that happens, the heart opens. At that point, the mind becomes clear again. Not doing anything doesn't mean pulling away from life. It means just going with the flow of life. Without a plan, not by pushing. And real action comes from that meeting. Not rushed, not pushed, but rooted. What you do when it feels normal, like breathing, the kind that doesn't wear you down because it doesn't come from your mind's worry, but from your heart's knowing. Let this be the permission you didn't know you needed tonight. If you feel tired, not just physically, but also emotionally. Now you can stop. You can rest. You do not have to fix anything. Of working hard to try to become. You're not behind schedule. You're not hurt. You're here. That's enough. Allow the breath to do its own thing. Let the thoughts come and go. Relax and let the silence cover you like a blanket. Don't try to find peace. Don't reach any further. That's it. Whole, peaceful, already yours. From that deep silence, the journey goes on. Not forward, not going backwards, but more into being there. After letting go of the never-ending need to fix, try, or perform, and resting in the stillness that asked for nothing, a soft stirring starts to happen inside. Just being aware. Someone who was lost. Not of a problem or an idea, but of a person. Someone small, unprotected, and ignored for a long time. Not a memory, but a way of feeling. The one who was left behind while everyone else got through the years. The one who didn't get comfort when they cried. The person who didn't know why they were blamed, ignored, or told they were too young to grow up. The one who learned to hide in order to keep going. You still have this part of you. It's still here. In the background, it has been waiting for the day you will notice it again. Today is that day. Buddhism doesn't believe in removing the past. Instead, it says that healing is about bringing love to things that were never met with it. Metta, or loving kindness, is not just something you do for other people. That child inside who held on to fear, shame, confusion, or loneliness because they didn't know where else to put it. This is where making friends with your inner child starts, not as a brain workout, but as a very kind thing to do. It's not about remembering things from your youth. It's about facing the emotional mark that's still there in your breath, in your nervous system, and when you're at your most alert. It is not a mistake to have an inner child. As a child, you were stuck in time and still longed for safety, love, and someone to tell you, "I'm here now." You are no longer alone. Many spiritual paths are about going beyond the self, but there must be unity first, before there is transcendence. Giving up a part of yourself won't make you feel whole. You can't get over feel of being alone by meditating without first sitting next to it. Being kind to your inner child is not the same thing as being indulgent. It has to be done. It's a rewiring of the mind. It's getting back the energy that was stuck during times of fear. That pain didn't go away when you were told off for crying or being honest, when you were left out, misread, or just not seen. It was buried. Now, it shows up in the way you act, not in the words you use, in the tightness that comes from not being understood. When you're scared and left out. In the cold that comes up when you're scared and don't know how to ask for help. You don't have a mistake here. That's a sign. A quiet whisper from the lonely self, "Please don't leave me behind again." You can now react differently because you are present. There's no need to run. It's not necessary to turn it off. It's okay to sit with it. Take a deep breath. Give it what it's always wanted, kindness instead of answers. Start by taking a deep breath. Take your time. Make it deep. Think of your younger self as a feeling, not a picture. The way of being alone. The weight of being lost. That pain you feel when you want to be hugged but don't know how to. Do not judge it, just pay attention to it and start to talk to it, but don't explain anything, just be kind. "I see you," you say. "I'm back to get you. The quiet wasn't fair to you. You shouldn't have been blamed. You were just trying to stay alive." This conversation inside your head is real. It's repair. It's there now, where there was only nothingness before. The brain, the nervous system, and the body all move in response. You don't have to fix the past for the child. In this moment, it needs to know that it's not by itself, that it is no longer being left by the self it believed would return. This exercise can make you feel things. There may be tears, there may be shaking. You might remember things from the past, like a storm. Let them. You don't need to know everything. You should just stay. Do not think about the story. Say, "I am here," over and over to that inner presence as you breathe. I'm not going. Something very important starts to change as the inner child starts to feel safer. Things get easier. Less triggers happen. You don't have to be so aggressive in partnerships to protect yourself. You stop expecting other people to take care of parts of yourself that they haven't met. It starts to dawn on you that you can now give yourself what you needed from other people: approval, comfort, and solace. In a cold sense, this is not self-sufficiency. It is paying it forward. It's becoming the grown-up you've always wanted to be. This doesn't mean you should turn your back on your real parents. It means being aware of their limits and not waiting for them to do something they couldn't. You tell yourself it's okay to stop waiting. At that point, the kid stops clinging to ghosts. It starts to feel better in the warmth of your attention. Kindness doesn't have to be pushed. It grows when you're honest. Ask yourself softly, is this the orphan speaking? Every time you feel hurt or angry, you soften if they say yes. You don't try to hide how you feel. You don't act on it. You focus on yourself and show up. This mental shift changes how you feel about everything in your life. You go from being alone to being connected, but not through other people. It's through the self that finally showed up. This practice also shows you how strong you really are. Not the toughness of steel or indifference, but the ability to keep going through something that was too painful to face before. You understand that you're not weak. You have the power to hold all of your experiences, even the oldest and most painful ones. The inner child starts to talk less out of fear and more out of peace over time. It screams less now, it talks softly, and sometimes it just rests. It has been held, not because it has been removed. The meeting is over, not when the pain goes away, but when it doesn't need to be fixed. It is seen when it believes it will be seen without making a mess. This changes how you show up in the world. You walk in a different way. You answer more softly. You pay more attention, because you don't have to go through life with a hidden pain anymore. You're walking with someone with whom you've made peace. Someone who used to hide in the dark, but is now being seen by you, walks in the light. This kind of making things right isn't about method. It's about being there. Not a story, not any steps, just a desire to keep coming back to the breath, the feeling, and the part of you that you thought you had forgotten. And each time you do that, the child is less alone. It joins the whole thing. And this coming together is what healing is all about. It's not that nothing hurts, but that nothing is left behind. You are not split up. As an adult, you can do things, and as a child, you can suffer in silence. You are one, taking a breath, a feeling, becoming. Let everyone outside rush. Let the noise go up and down. There is a silent thing going on inside. A coming home. A warmth where it was cold before. A presence where there wasn't one before. All of it was built with love, not force. The road goes on from this sacred reunion, not into striving or running away, but into becoming more whole. Being whole now includes the part of you that has been waiting the longest to be seen. When you sit with your inner orphan and learn to hold the forgotten parts with quiet kindness and strength, you start to feel a different kind of peace. It's not loud or strange. Peace like this doesn't make the news or get people cheering. It's the peace that comes from knowing you won't leave yourself, that the weakest parts of you now have a place, not because they were fixed, but because they were finally put in. But even in that unity, there is another question that starts to bubble to the surface. Being in the middle of acceptance and change leads to this question. Why do you want to change if you're fine? If you're getting better, why do you still want to change? Is it wrong to want to change even if you're fine the way you are? Here is where the middle way starts to show itself, not as a compromise, but as a deep truth. The way between always trying to improve yourself and passively accepting yourself is not a conflict. It has a beat, a flow, a way of being in the world where you can grow without being pushed, and where being there doesn't mean staying the same. In this view, being whole is not a fixed state. It's a balance that changes, lives, and adapts every moment. The middle way has always been important to Buddhism. It means not being too tight or too open. It's not self-denial or luxury. This message is even more important when it comes to our inner lives, because society often says both be better at the same time. Love yourself, though. Do more. Try not to fail. A lot of people feel confused or guilty because of this conflict. Either they're tired of trying or stuck in a state of acceptance that looks like peace. The middle way suggests that there is another choice. You can grow without rejecting yourself, and you can accept yourself without falling apart. You can tell when you're pushing too hard when you walk this road. You feel the pressure, the tightness, and the voice that says, "You're not enough until you change." But instead of listening to that voice, you stop. You take deep breaths. You ask, "Can I grow from love instead?" There is still growth. The tone changes, though. The stress eases up. You don't start developing to prove something. You do it because it feels right. However, you also notice when you start to avoid change by telling yourself, "This is just how I am," an attempt to avoid the pain that comes with it. When presence turns into passivity, you can tell. When understanding turns into avoiding, you pause again, you pay more attention. You ask yourself, am I being kind to myself now, or am I running away from life? As always, the answer is clear if you're being honest. Please don't judge me. It's love. Perfect performance is not what the middle way is about. It's about listening carefully. There aren't any dramatic times along this path. It can be found in everyday things. When you talk to yourself after you mess up, it doesn't matter if you practice to punish yourself or because you love your mind. In whether you force yourself to do something because you feel ashamed or because you feel a calling from within that comes from being still. On this road, motivation doesn't go away. It only changes the source. It stops coming from fear and starts coming from harmony. Your mind will try to trick you. That thing will say, if you accept yourself, you won't grow. But that's not true. Growth that lasts is only possible when it is based on acceptance. If not, it turns into a machine. You run faster, but you never get there. You get more done, but you never feel complete. Accepting yourself is the key to growth. It lets you be honest in your growth instead of acting it out. The changes are bigger when you grow from that place. They last. The mind will also say, if you grow, it means you don't really accept yourself. But that's also not true. You can be okay with who you are now while also moving toward who you want to be. There's nothing wrong with that strain. It's energy for creativity. On the edge, things change, not because you reject the present, but because you see the possibility that's already there. This balance needs to be checked every day. It's not to control it, it's to stay close to it. You'll lean more into rest sometimes with work. The middle is not a set point though. The center is changing. You sign in, you take deep breaths. What am I doing out of fear, you ask? What do I do because I love you? And you move, kindly, several times, with no fuss. This changes how you connect with your spiritual path as well. It stops being a show and starts being more like a bond when you meditate. Mindfulness stops being a goal to reach and starts being a way to come back. Stop feeling desperate about everything, even your job, health, and relationships. They become symbols of how you're growing, not awards that show how valuable you are. After some thought, you start to move, but not with force. That's how the middle way works. There is also a deep kindness that grows here. Stop being mean to your old selves. You no longer dislike the person you used to be. You can now see that every form of you has been walking this same line, trying their best to grow while also not falling apart. Your old self makes you bow down, not because they were great, but because they kept going. This understanding changes everything about how you connect with other people. You stop reacting as much, not as critical. You can see that everyone is dealing with the same stress. They want to change, but are afraid of losing who they are. They want to fit in, but are afraid of staying where they are. You let people have space. You show kindness. You support them without forcing them. Your love doesn't need to be saved. You can see this balance in a relationship like this. On this road, self-discipline doesn't go away. It just gets easier to handle, even better. You start to act based on clarity instead of force. If you don't keep your promises to yourself, it will make you feel bad. Because being honest makes you feel good. You start to believe in your own time. You let rest be a part of moving forward. You let the quiet help you learn. Soon, you'll know that the fastest way is the one that doesn't wear you out. It's not easy. The world teaches us about extremes. Either push hard or let go. Either fix everything or give up. Buddhism, on the other hand, says to stay in the middle, even if the edges are loud. It doesn't mean you won't lose your balance. That means you come back faster, you get better faster, you see more. This will become second nature over time. The strain stays, but it feels like it's been there before. You must no longer fight it. You start to work with it. There will be days when you lean more toward acceptance, a few days into growth, but the enemy isn't either. They are both dancing. You can be true to both I am enough and I can grow. They don't leave each other out. They help each other out. One gives you a base. You get wings from the other one. As you lie still tonight, let this be a warning that you won't be whole when you finally get there. To find it, you have to learn how to walk the middle over and over, with air, with kindness. You can love yourself and grow without having to choose between the two. You can do both. You're already there. The next step on your road will open up for you from this center without any pressure or resistance. It will be clear, and calm. When you learn to find the middle ground between growth and acceptance, when you let go of the need to change into someone else while still heeding the call to grow, something deeper starts to move below the surface. Something that not many people talk about, but everyone knows. Want. Not the hunger that eats you up or the desire that takes over, but the desire that's deep inside the heart. The desire for beauty. In order to connect, to be honest, to get something else, it's not more in a greedy way, but more in a holy way. A fullness that doesn't make you feel empty, a freedom that doesn't make you feel dull. And this is where a lot of people on the road get lost, due to the fact that spiritual beliefs often say not to want things, but desire is still alive. This is where Tantric Buddhism gives us a surprise. It doesn't tell you to kill your desire. It does not say that wanting is wrong. How to listen is what it does instead. Learn how to deal with desire in a wise way instead of a stubborn way. Instead of seeing desire as poison, it sees it as power. It wasn't a mistake, it was a message. The issue isn't that you want. How do you hold on to what you want? When someone desperately clings to a goal, it turns into suffering. But desire turns into holy fuel when it is held with open awareness. It turns into the fire that lights the way, not because it is given in or taken away, but because it is understood. To start getting this understanding, pay attention to how desire moves through you, not in theory, but in how it feels. In what part of the body does it land? What does it whisper? Does it get smaller or bigger? What makes it happen? Fear or life? It has less power over you when you can see its shape more clearly. It gets softer the less you judge it. You start to understand that not all wants are the same. The ego's fear of not being enough makes it want some things. Some come from the soul's desire to connect with something more real. It changes everything that you know. Energy is not the enemy, as taught by tantric practice. It's how it's kept that counts. Like a strong river can either heal or kill, depending on where its banks are, desire can either bring about awakening or pain, depending on how aware you are of it. It burns you when you hold it. It gets worse when you try to hide it. But it changes when you let it in, breathe into it, and hold it in your heart of presence. This doesn't mean giving in to every urge. It means getting close to the urge without simply following it. You sit with the need, you really feel it, and you ask, what does this really mean? What is it buried under? It's not always the thing you want that you want, but the way you think it will make you feel. Safety, getting noticed, being alive. You stop chasing shadows when you name that, when you get to the root. You start working with real things right away. The mind likes to separate things. Wanting is not good. It's good to let go. But on the tantric road, this choice doesn't work. In this case, hunger and giving up are not opposites. They are dancing partners. Letting go does not mean putting down a wish. It's the roomy holding of it. Wanting something doesn't mean giving up peace. It means life is moving toward itself. From this point of view, the goal is not to stop feeling, but to feel without being taken over by it. In this way, desire can be changed into understanding. You can't get away from the power. You let it rise, and then you meet it with a presence that is so wide open that it can't fall back into wanting. Instead, it grows. It gets better. It turns the heart open instead of shut. It changes from a demand to a prayer. This changes everything in everyday life. You are no longer afraid of your wants. You shouldn't feel bad about wanting truth, beauty, connection, and meaning. On the other hand, you stop chasing things that can't really meet your needs. They feel like fire in your hands. Be careful. With respect. You let the heat in, but you don't get burned. You accept the desire, but not all of its paths. You pay attention more than you speak. You don't have to give up your goals or your interests. It means that you meet them in a different way. Not because you don't have enough, but because you do. You move toward what's important, but you don't hold on to the result. You let go of the idea that you need to get everything in order to be okay. And this makes you happy in a way that isn't tied to success. The joy of being honest, in line with. When you go with the flow of life instead of against it. From this point of view, desire is not just noise, it's music. You need to learn how to listen, though. Find out how to feel the beat without getting sucked in. How to keep your balance while dancing. This needs practice. Being there. Be honest. You start to notice when the wanting is strong, when it takes you away from the present, when it tries to fill a hole that it could have filled by being there. At that point, you stop. You take deep breaths. You ask, what if I stayed here instead? And something gets softer. You don't need to do anything. There's no need to push. You only need to be, with the desire, not having to run, with the way you feel, not having the story. What comes next is not repression. It's like magic. The desire changes. It gets warmer in the chest, feeling light in the back, mind space, and the thing you thought would finish you no longer has any power over you. Not because you pushed it away, but because you knew better. Since you stayed. You didn't let it rule you. You let it teach you. This changes everything about partnerships. You no longer need other people to finish a picture for you. Stop telling them they have to satisfy all of your hunger. Not from a place of nothingness, but from being there, you start to share love. You don't reach for them to get away anymore. As you reach, be aware, be careful, with the choice to stay or go. Desire is still there, but it's more clear now, with no movement. Tantric Buddhism doesn't get rid of hunger, makes it better. It shows that what we really want is togetherness, not something or someone, to be honest, for changing into something bigger than yourself. Being deeply present with that desire makes it open. It turns into love, not to a God outside of life, but to life itself. In honor of how holy this moment is, to the light that only wants to burn brightly. This is not vague. You can feel it, in the air, inside the body, in the break before you get there, in the void between your thoughts, in the knowing that you can want something, but you don't have to follow. You can keep the fire going. You can take a break. It won't burn down your house, but it will keep you warm. And sometimes that means the old way of grieving, sad about the part of you that chased all the time. The world was asked to fill a void it didn't know how to reach. That grabbed because it wasn't sure how to feel yet. You are good to that version of yourself. You thank them. You let it go. Not when it's cold, but with love. Because you aren't running away from hunger anymore, and it no longer has power over you. It's with you as you walk. being quiet, keeping, taking a breath. And that's where the energy that was once called desire turns into something holy, something calm, something that gives you back to yourself instead of taking from you. This is not the end state. There is a way, a beat. You'll chase some days. You'll grasp some days. You know how to get back now, though. You catch yourself more quickly. You become softer more quickly. And desire turns into what it was always meant to be, a wave you can ride instead of drowning in. So tonight, let all of your longings come out without any judgment. Let every hunger be heard, but don't reach for the thing. Instead, reach for being there, to take a breath, to have the knowledge to hold everything without having to grab it. And let that thought fill the room. Let it be more satisfactory than the result could ever be. From that place of deep, still satisfaction, the trip goes on, not toward more or away from less, but into the middle, where want turns into light, where desire turns into clarity, and where you know that you don't have to push anything away to find peace. It just needs to be held in a different way. When you learn to sit with desire, not to make it do what you want or reject it, but to hold it with presence, you start to see things more clearly. It gets less caught up in wanting and more interested in what's really going on beneath it all. There is a quiet question that comes up. What am I if I'm not what I want or what I push away? Not in the sense of a name or a belief, but in the sense of going through something yourself. What is this self I'm always trying to understand, protect, or fix? Are there ways to answer that question without coming to a conclusion? This is the point where, in Buddhist practice, identity stops being something to say and starts being something to see. The concept of the 5 aggregates opens a door at this point, not as an idea to remember, but as a way to look into what we call the self without having to fix it or break it up. Form, emotion, perception, brain structures, and consciousness are not parts of a person. The steps are processes, experiences coming at you. They give the impression of a set self when put together, but when looked at closely, they show something much more honest. There is no solid heart. Things are moving, scheme, flow, and you can't be whole by holding on to one of these parts. Instead, you have to watch how they come and go like waves on the shore. Being aware of this doesn't mean to hurt the self. It means to free it from fantasy. You start to think of the body as a shape that changes, ages, and feels things. You are not the form. You already know it. You can see emotions coming up, good, bad, or neutral. These feelings don't make you who you are. They come to see you. You pay attention to senses, which are your skills at recognizing names, shapes, symbols, and emotional tones. These ideas shape the world, but they are not set in stone. They change based on memory, mood, and situation. Then there are your mental formations, which include your thoughts, ideas, actions, and plans. These things often feel like the center of who we are, but they change so fast if you look closely. For a moment, trust. The next one was worry, fear for a moment. The next day, calm. Even though these trends change, we often say, "That's me." But they are not the self. They're what the self looks at. And finally, there is consciousness, the knowing that all of this is going on. Thoughts don't stick around. It sees. It lets you. The other groups are seen by it as they move. Another hidden truth is that when you look closely at all five, the illusion that there is a single, solid me at the heart of it all starts to fall apart. There is something left that is not a blank. It's not cold. It's very big. It's calm, because there is nothing left to protect. No part needs to be thrown out or made into a personality. You can see everything. Everything can fit. Keeping an eye on the five aggregates is not a vague habit. It's a direct meeting with your experience. When you're angry, you can feel your chest getting tight. The feeling of heat, the critical thoughts, formations in the mind. The idea that a person or thing is the cause, perception, and being aware of all of this, consciousness. You are not angry at that time. You are aware inside it. That changes the whole experience. It wakes them up. This is what collaboration is built on. Your good moods and bad days, your authentic self and your shadow become less separate from each other. You begin to understand that everything is made up of the same moving parts. There's nothing that needs to be thrown out. There is no emotion that keeps you from being at peace. You enter wholeness when you look at the groups. This doesn't make everything feel good, but it does make everything clear to see. When you meditate, you do this observation every day. You look over your life while sitting still. The way the body feels, form, a response, how it makes you feel, a name in your mind, perception, a thought that comes to mind, formation of the mind. Being aware of everything, consciousness, and the more you do it, the more flexible you feel about who you are. You must stop trying, stop making yourself out of thoughts. The movement starts to feel good, and you don't try to stop it. This changes how you interact with the world as well. Don't think that people are only what they show. You know that everyone is made up of different things, like feelings, memories, images, and moods that change. You don't have to take it personally when someone gets angry. You can see how their minds work, how they felt, how they saw things. They're not boiled down to that moment, and that makes room for kindness, to not reacting, to wisdom that looks beyond action and into the cause of it. Detachment in the cold sense is not what this is about. It's about being free from confusion, the mess that says, I am this thought, I'm in this mood, I am this opinion. When you understand that each of these comes from circumstances, you start to calm down. You should stop making things last forever. What that does is free you to respond instead of react, to let things go by without making a new character for each change. With this view, it's easy to deal with even physical pain. It stops being your pain and turns into a pattern, a form, sense of what, a chain of responses. You're not denying the pain. You start to be interested in it. It helps you breathe. You become softer around it, and sometimes it loses its hold on you, not because it goes away, but because you become less connected to it. This finding breaks down shame as well. When we think that our thoughts and feelings make us who we are, shame grows. When you look at them as a whole, though, you realize this feeling is passing. This thought has been shaped. He said, this reaction is not a flaw. It's a formation. That thought broke the chain. Shame stops being a jail and turns into just another moment. This doesn't have to be done all at once. First, take a moment. Take a deep breath. One feeling. Watch it come up. Pay attention to what part of the sum it is. Take deep breaths, and don't become it. Instead, see it. Your nerves are changed by even a short time of this. You believe in awareness more than you believe in your personality, and trust grows. This road is very pretty. That doesn't mean you'll always feel good. You'll no longer be tricked, it says, that you will see life as it really is, not to run away from it, but to face it with open eyes. Getting peace means letting go of the need to be a certain way and letting things move through you. Not from being perfect, from having an idea. You will still want certain things. You can still choose. You'll still bond with them, but not as much. Not so much ego. There's less mess. You'll understand that everything, pleasure, pain, happiness, and sadness, is a dance of aggregation. You'll be able to dance with more ease, since you're not trying to be the dancer anymore. You're taking a break while the dance goes through the space. Wholeness is not something you can reach in that place. You remember it, not as an end, but as a truth that you live by. That there is nothing different about you. There is nothing to erase. You can be aware of everything. You can see everything, and being free starts with being able to see everything. So keep things easy tonight. Take a break. Let your thoughts float away. Feelings should go up and down. Also, pay attention in the middle of everything. Keep your door open. Allow the groups to move and be the witness. Be open and kind, and don't need anything to stay or go. The path goes on from that point of view. Better, whole. When you see the self as a flow of forms, feelings, perceptions, mental structures, and awareness, you start to feel more calm inside. Not a silence that you have to work hard to keep, but a natural hush that happens when you no longer need to hold on, explain, or describe something. There is no longer a war between the pieces. No longer are the parts marked as good or bad. They are just seen instead. And when they are seen, they start to soften and settle down. But there is another way to stay in this unity and make it deeper. An opening that doesn't say anything but speaks to everything inside. There is quiet there, not an empty silence, but a silence that holds everything without pushing it away. There is no absence in this quiet. There is connection. All of the parts of yourself can breathe, listen, and come back home when you give them room. A lot of people think of quiet as a break between things, something to put in, something to get away from. A break between the important things. But for Buddhists, silence is not a break from life. It is life itself, without the noise. It is the language that isn't spoken that talks to the body, the breath, and the core of being without having to be explained. It is not separation. It is joining together. When there is silence, there is no need to move, react, or change anything. What comes up just comes up. Things that move, move. All of the parts of the self start to find each other again. Silence is more than just not hearing anything. It's when there is no pressure. The silence where no one is pushing or judging you. The breath gets deeper. The thoughts get less clear. And what's left is presence, not nothingness. Complete, still alive, not split up. This isn't a passive kind of silence. It's strong. It really helps the mind stop talking for a while so that deeper facts can come to the surface. Old stories don't seem as important in this quiet. The inner reviewer stops being loud. Now there is more peace, not because all the problems have been fixed, but because everything is okay. Being aware in deep silence doesn't make you feel like you're hiding. It makes you want to go back. You're not running away from the world, you're coming back to the center, which is where you can face the world with peace. When you do it regularly, periods of silence are like gravity for your soul. Thoughts that are spread out start to circle more slowly. Things that used to make people angry or sad start to make room for each other. And the more you sink into this stillness, the more you can feel your inner world slowly coming back together, not by force or hard work, but by letting them. Know this: being quiet does not always feel peaceful at first. For many, the first feeling is restlessness, being bored, even fear. Because the mind has learned that being still means nothing and is uncomfortable. However, if you stay long enough and fight the desire to leave, something other than chaos will start to rise. It makes sense. What's behind the noise can be seen in the mirror of silence, and it shows it softly and without any distortion. Because of this, quiet meditation retreats are not places to get away from life. They are places to face reality. The fact that the mind has built up layers of defenses through sound, words, and distractions. There is nowhere to hide in quiet, though, and that's when something real comes out, and a kindness, a simple thing. Realizing that the self you've been looking for was never lost. It was just hidden by too many words. Silence that is mindful makes room between desire and action. In the middle of feeling and acting, it gives your nerve system a chance to rest and heal. Over time, you start to want that room, not as a way to escape, but as a way to get food. You begin to understand that a lot of your pain wasn't caused by events themselves, but by the noise that came after them. The thinking too much, the telling again, the layers of comments that silence removes slowly. This exercise also makes relationships stronger. You are a better listener when you can stand in silence during a talk and not fill the void with something. You hear more than what someone says. You also hear how they feel. You can tell their voice is shaking because of the breaks between words. That's how people feel. They know you're there. They also find safety in your silence. And when you can be still, you stop reacting. You don't have to defend every thought. You don't have to explain every thought. You don't hold on to things and let them go without being in charge. Along with that, you start to notice that even the scared, loud, and confused parts of yourself start to calm down. Since they don't feel pushed out anymore, they are just held. That's how silence can help heal. You're not fixed, it includes you. When there is silence, the mind can see its own patterns more clearly. When whispered, the same thoughts that seemed strong when yelled start to sound less strong. The need to act quickly gives way to interest. Having this opens the door to insight, which is not the same thing as knowledge. You start to understand your own rhythms. Once you start to feel it, you'll know if something is coming from habit or truth. You learn to trust your inner guidance, which is only clear when you're alone. Being still also helps you connect with your body, with air, how you stand, with the feeling of being alive. In a world that makes you think all the time, silence brings you back to feeling, to feel how heavy your feet are on the ground, the pattern of your breath, in and out, the way you feel right now that you are alive. That's also merging. You are no longer split into your mind and body, your past and your future, your wants and your fears. You're here. You can make this a part of your everyday life. It's not necessary to have a monastery or a retreat place. You can start by sitting still for 1 minute before you start your day. Take a few deep breaths and be quiet before you answer a message. By deciding to walk without headphones, drive without taking up too much space, and eat without being interrupted. With these little gaps of silence, a new beat starts to take shape. These people become strongholds in a world that tends to pull you away from yourself. You stop being afraid of the silence as it gets stronger. You stop seeing it as empty space and start seeing it as full space, without noise. Not as not being there, but as holy presence. The fear of being alone slowly goes away. Because you're not by yourself, you're just with yourself, everyone. Held in a wide open awareness that doesn't split. You don't have to talk about your experience in order to feel it. You don't have to explain your pain anymore for it to be real. You don't have to share every thought for people to trust it. Since the quiet is enough on its own. Not usually. Not as a way of life. But as a place to stay. As a reminder. That there is this behind every word, every personality, and every goal. This breath. This quiet, this being that doesn't say anything but means everything. Something deeper takes place in that stillness. You start to see parts of yourself that you never spoke of. The sadness that was quiet, the silent awe, the things that words can't say. They come forward not to be fixed, but to be seen. They are too. It's not because you talk to them, but because you pay attention. This is the peace that heals, the silence that fits in, the stillness that unites all of your being, your thoughts, feelings, senses, and memories, into a single present moment. It does not expect you to be great. You don't need to know the answers. It only wants you to stay, that you take a break, that you listened past the noise long enough to find out what was there. So tonight, learn from the silence. Not pushed, not germ-free, but still living. Use it to sit in. Take a deep breath in. Give it time to hold you, like the sky holds the clouds, slowly, without judging and without rushing. Let yourself feel whole as you hold on. It's not because everything is over, but because everything is okay. From this peaceful center, the way goes on, but not with more words or louder effort. Instead, it leads you with stillness. Something rare starts to come back after a period of rest in silence, the kind that doesn't just quiet the mouth, but also calms the whole mind. A clarity that doesn't come from argument. A sense of unity that isn't forced together. You no longer have to chase or fix things. Take a deep breath. Nothing but space. Becoming. And a question comes up inside that being. Not spoken, but deeply felt. If none of the names you've collected are really you, what should you do? What if the key to freedom isn't getting smarter, but letting go of everything you thought you knew? This is the point where you can go back to your original thoughts, a mind that isn't made up of memories or identities, a mind that doesn't try to be right, but rather real, mind of a beginner. The spot where truth isn't stored in thoughts, but is found each moment. People who practice Zen often talk about having the mind of a beginning, but not as innocence, but as holy openness. It's the mind before the story, the mind before the name, the one that doesn't jump to conclusions in the next word. It shows life as it really is, because it has stopped acting like it already knows what everything means, not because it isn't smart. In that innocence, not ignorance, life starts to feel like it's alive again. Identity that builds up is heavy. It builds up over time, like paint layers on top of each other, until it's hard to feel your pure self. You're not just seeing a flower, you're seeing what you were told it meant. You're not just meeting a person, you're also meeting the ideas you had about them before. Even the feelings you have about yourself aren't new to you. They are labeled, graded, and compared. The mind of a beginner sees right through that weight, not with force, but with thought. Being curious is what drives an original mind. It doesn't depend on skill. It doesn't protect you with your past. It asks in a low voice, "What is this right now?" It does listen. It doesn't think it knows what the next moment will be like. It doesn't boil down the world to ideas, and not knowing is more like knowing the truth than being sure of something. It's scary for most people to not know. They say things about things that aren't known, with group names, but the very act of trying to label and define is what stops them from being present. Having beginner's mind doesn't mean being lost. It's about being honest enough to say that each moment is unique and can't be fully explained by one thought. It means giving up the idea that knowing something means you can control it. Going back to the state of beginner's mind is not regression, it is repair. You're not going backwards, you're seeing what you stopped seeing when you woke up. To the sky without any words, to the way water feels without any explanation, to your breath as a miracle, not as a way to do something. Original mind can be here without permission. It does nothing but wait for you to drop what you're holding. This drop is not very big. It's not noisy. You don't give up what you believe. You should just let go of them. Remember, things don't go away. You should no longer use them as plans. You start to believe in something bigger than your thoughts, something that you don't have to hear about to feel it, something that watches, listens, and gets things. One place where a beginner's mind gets very clear is during meditation. When you first start, you bring hopes. Hopes. There might even be a goal, but these ties make the practice feel narrow over time. You begin to understand that the most fulfilling meditations are the ones in which you don't use any methods and just sit, your only goal being to be awake, to take a breath, to accept the moment instead of trying to control it. This isn't being lazy, it is closeness. You're still not leaving, you are logging in. Not by acting like you know what should happen, without forcing the experience to make sense. And letting go of what you know leads to a new kind of knowledge, one that's not in the mind. It's inside the body, in the air, in how your heart feels about things when no one tells it what to feel. Mind of a beginner is also a great way to learn how to deal with disagreement. You can't let anything new happen in a disagreement if you think you already know everything about it. Their side, your side, the meaning, and the result. But if you listen with an open mind, you don't listen to confirm, but to learn. You let down your guard not because you're weak, but because you want to see. And when people are ready, relationships change. Not always simple, but really, unique thoughts change how you spend your day. It changes how you walk to your car. You change the way you eat food. You are not going through processes. Instead, you are finding them again. Now you're not living your life from memory. You're going straight to it, not getting in the way of what it should be. Just show what it is. The way you deal with pain also changes. You become interested in it instead of naming it, being afraid of it, or getting ready to fight it. What does this feel like right now? Not what I believe it means. It didn't feel like what I remember yesterday, but right now, when you ask, something opens up. The suffering gets better, but the pain doesn't always go away, because old tools are no longer used to fight the unknown in the mind. And this is how kids naturally live. It's not that they don't know anything, it's just that they haven't told too many stories yet. They touch things to feel them, not to put them into groups. Their goal is not to show something, but to learn. And when we return to that openness, we're not acting like kids again, we're getting understanding back. Having a beginner's mind doesn't mean you always have to start from scratch. It means going back to the present as if it were brand new, since it is. No two breaths are the same. Every moment is a gift that can only be given once. Meeting it with the weight of everything you've thought about in the past is to miss its present. This practice makes you humble. Not the kind that brings you down, but the kind that makes you softer. You no longer need to be the expert. You don't have to be right. You start to value being there more than doing well. You talk less and listen more, and the things you listen to make you wise. You can connect with students when you teach with a beginner's mind, because you're not giving advice from a chair, you're talking with the person in front of you about what is true. In art, having a beginner's mind lets you be spontaneous, for you are not copying a past self. Instead, you're interacting with the canvas as if it were real. It brings wonder in love, because each time you meet your partner, you meet them for the first time. Being this way doesn't get rid of memory or understanding. It only keeps them from turning into cages. You can still think about it, to find out, to put together. But you don't show how much you know. Not a sword, more like a leaf. No more trying to prove yourself. You become yourself, without me having to say it. So tonight, don't feel like you have to explain things. Whether you're called successful, unsuccessful, smart, broken, spiritual, or lost, put those labels to the side. It's not that they're wrong. That is, because they are too small to hold all of this moment. Take deep breaths, like you've never done them before. As if it were the first time, feel the air on your skin. Let the fact that you're there surprise you. From that place of newness, the way goes on, not with certainty, but with wonder, not with a plan, but with honesty, not with the weight of knowing, but with the freedom to start over every breath, whole for all time. When you go back to having a beginner's mind, when you let go of old identities and look at the world with interest instead of judgment, something even more subtle starts to become clear. A quiet tug-of-war that's been going on below the surface, most of the time without anyone noticing. Being torn between what you think you are and what you think you should be. The contrast between the person you are now and the person you picture being better. It's not loud like fear or sharp like sadness, but it wears you down, divides your attention, and won't let your heart rest. You're not quite there yet, it says in a whisper. That you'd finally get there if you worked a little harder and fixed a few more things. But that place never seems to show up. This is the start of the quiet, never-ending inner struggle. One that getting more done won't solve. One that doesn't go away until the illusion of difference is fully seen through. This is where the teaching of non-duality, called Advaita, comes in. It's not as theory, but as real life. You don't have to believe anything to understand non-duality. It doesn't need any religious jargon or ideas about space. It only shows what is true in our minds, that the line between self and life, between now and later, between what I am and what I should be, is made up by our minds. One that is easy to put down. The war will end when that happens. At the heart of non-duality is the simple idea that there is no different self that watches the world. There is only awareness which shows up as this moment. Not being aware of something, being everything, and just being aware of it. The feelings, impulses, and thoughts all come from the same field. Not a limit. There is no center. Just moving, that is held in the present. The idea of being apart starts early. The mind learns to separate things. That's not me. This is me. It worked this time, but not that time. That's not right. This is. And this mental cutting causes pain over time. It makes a judge inside you, a voice that constantly measures your worth by comparing it to an ideal. Living isn't the only thing you do. You also think about yourself all the time. Was that enough? Did I say the right thing? Am I yet becoming the person I'm meant to be? The mind acts and criticizes at the same time. Wearing out. But this split starts to fall apart when non-duality is seen, not just thought about, felt in the body. Not because you've earned its approval, but because you no longer think it's different from the rest of you. The voice of judgment stops talking. You can see that even your inner judge is just another awareness that comes up, no more real or permanent than a cloud that goes away. You don't have to work hard to reach this understanding. It's by asking questions and seeing things for yourself. You stop when the thought comes to you, like, I should be more disciplined. Who is this I that should be more? Not to get an answer, but to see the question fall apart. The thought is not based on a set self. There is only thought coming up, and a strange peace comes into that space of knowing, because there might not have been a problem in the first place if there is no real self to fix. This does not make people apathetic. It makes you whole. You can still learn new things and get better at what you do. It used to come from war, but not anymore. It comes from love, from being clear, from alignment, not lack of ability. You stop being shackled by the thought that you're not good enough and start moving with the breath of presence. When it comes to partnerships, this changes everything. Stop putting your inner split onto other people. You should stop asking them to prove your worth. You listen more and speak less. There is now room. There is room to see that the other person is also not different. You feel their pain. Their happiness makes you happy, not as a figure of speech, but as a real event. You feel linked even when you're by yourself. because you don't feel like a different thing floating around in space anymore. You are life itself and are aware of how it moves. You don't need approval to be there. To be real, you don't have to be seen a certain way. The worry that you're not good enough starts to fade. That's because you can't compare yourself to anything outside of this moment. Being non-dually doesn't mean that you don't have any feelings. It's still sad. Anger still comes back. But they're not about you anymore. They're not your anger or sadness. They are just energy that is going through our minds, fully felt, gentle hold, released on its own. You need to let go of stories. Don't argue with what is. Being quiet doesn't mean this. It means you act without questioning yourself. You don't have to wait to find peace until you change. You're living it now. In a strange way, this makes it possible for real change to happen. Since you're not fighting yourself anymore, you are no longer a doer and a done to. You're whole. This changes how you feel about time too. It starts to seem silly to think that peace is on the way. You stop and pay attention to how often your mind says, "When I do that, I'll feel better." Is that true? You ask. You pay attention to the present. You take deep breaths. You now see that peace was always there, but you were too busy looking for it to notice. The nervous system starts to relax when you do this over and over again. The body is no longer getting ready for battle. The breath is no longer tense. You know what it's like to just be, without having to prove your presence through performance, productivity, or perfection. You can't get to a state of non-duality. It is the truth that you already knew when you began your search. The truth that you can see once you stop looking for it. No more outlining. Don't fight. It's not something you got extra of. It's what's left over after the false divides are gone. This sense of awareness isn't strong or striking. Being open to every moment is what it does. Not even confusion, not even fight. There is no need to leave anything out, because the fight is part of the whole in non-duality. That voice that says, "This is hard to grasp," is just one more wave in the ocean. You don't have to make people understand. You don't have to get rid of your ego. All you have to do is realize that the ego is also a change in awareness. And that wisdom doesn't give you an edge, not a limit, not a choice. It just holds everything, the feeling of being behind, the drive to get better, the worry that someone will judge them. Everyone's seen, all are welcome, all of them went back to the space they never left. This awareness grows slowly, not through a debate, not by being intense. For many times, though, soft seeing, through a quiet question, going back to the breath, the body, and the present that only wants your attention over and over again. And with that care, the war inside starts to fade. Not because one group won, however, the fight itself goes away. So tonight, let go of the idea of what kind of person you should be. Allow the desire to improve yourself to melt away. Take away all of your different selves for a moment and feel what's left. This breath, this quiet, this awareness holds everything. You're not split up. You don't lack anything. You are not two different people at war with each other. That which is whole, open, and right now is you. The path goes on from here, not in search of something new, but to what was never different in the first place. A deeper kind of stillness is possible when the illusion of difference starts to fall apart and the inner war between who you are and who you thought you needed to become stops. When the mind is no longer pulled apart by duality, it starts to settle into the truth of what is. But when it's quiet, something old often comes to the surface. A clear mind, a choice that you can't change, things you wish you hadn't said, you wish you had broken the silence. Feel bad. Thoughts aside, it's also a feeling that sticks around like a shadow, going through the same loop over and over again, but in different forms. It's not always loud, but it's always there. Again, regret can stay in the background even after you've let go of judgment and rested in presence, telling you that one moment in the past can cancel out your wholeness in the present. It doesn't, though. Buddhism doesn't see sorrow as a bad thing or brush it off with platitudes or quick fixes. It's kind of like guilt as a teacher, as a way in, not one to avoid, but one to be careful when going into, because sorrow changes when you are aware of it. It changes into a compass from a chain. When it stops being a punishment, it becomes a way to grow, become clear, and even show kindness. You have to meet it fully, though, for that to happen. Do not push it down any longer. Don't try to fix it by blaming yourself or dulling the pain with something else. When we feel sorrow, we often tell ourselves that what happened should not have happened. I should have known better, or if only I'd done things differently. Keep going through the thoughts. But from a Buddhist point of view, the suffering is not in the past itself, but in the resistance to the past, the thought that something is truly wrong since it can't be fixed. Instead of rewriting past, the first step to getting out of pain is to look at it through a different lens. That view is a look at change, one of the most important Buddhist lessons. Things change. Moments come and go all the time. When you see sorrow through this truth, it starts to get easier to handle. You start to see that the person who said or did that thing wrong was not the same person you are now. Not better or worse, just different. Things, habits, and pain that you might not have been fully aware of at the time formed them. This isn't a reason, it's the setting. And what makes the difference between sorrow and understanding is the situation. Understanding does not change what happened. It doesn't fix the damage, but it makes the heart more open to kindness. To understand that everything, including you, is learning, making mistakes, and growing by doing so. The self that messed up was trying to deal with things, fit in, and feel safe in its own small way. Something changes when you see this. You're no longer the judge, you're now the witness. You stop being hard on yourself and start caring about the part of you that hurts other people because it's lost. Metta, or loving kindness meditation, is one of the most powerful ways to change, especially when looking inside. You don't think about how bad you felt at the time. Instead, you sit quietly and think about the person who made the mistake. Not to defend yourself, but to be kind, to let someone know, I see you. You got lost. You were scared. You breathe with that form of yourself. You make room for sadness, grief, and even loss, but you don't judge them. And that's where healing starts. In the Buddhist tradition of open recognition, confession is another practice. This is not the same thing as religious confession. You can do it by yourself or with a spiritual friend or teacher. You decide what to do. You can see how it works. You say you're sorry, not to beg for forgiveness, but to own up to what you did without feeling bad about it. This approach works well because it lets people talk about their regrets. It makes it clear. Things that are made public start to lose their power. Buddhism also teaches sila, which means ethical living. It's not a set of rules, but a way to find peace. When you feel sorrow, it's usually because you did something that wasn't in line with your core values. You don't feel guilty about that. Instead, you use it to help you. You ask, how can I live through this better now? What truth was not told back then that I can respect now? Regret turns into a master instead of a wound. The goal is to remind you of the kind of person you want to be, not to judge who you are. Being mindful is a big part of this healing. Thoughts that keep going over the event are often what cause sorrow, not the event itself. How could I be so stupid? I messed up everything. These are not the truth's words, the memories of pain that hasn't been dealt with. You are aware of these thoughts without becoming one with them when you sit in awareness. You take a deep breath and say, there's that thought again. You don't fight it. You don't give it food. Just look. And over time, it starts to become less sharp. Being able to change without hating who you were is one of the most freeing things that can happen. Self-punishment is not needed for growth. You don't have to be ashamed to change. In fact, shame often makes the hurt worse. You can feel bad about what you did without rejecting the person who did it. Your worst moment doesn't have to define who you are. You can take responsibility. This is how you get from punishment to being present. Being present is what sorrow needs to feel better, because feeling sorrow makes you think about things that happened in the past that are no longer true. Presence tells you to come back. Here it is, this breath, this step, this choice. Don't forget the past, but to make a different choice now, over and over. Because being whole doesn't mean getting rid of mistakes. They need to be a part of a story that keeps changing. A story that says, that moment was just a part of the way. Buddha taught that everyone can change, that no one is stuck in the past, that fate is not a sentence, it's a flow. What counts is how you react right now. When you deal with sorrow with kindness and understanding, your future starts to show that you care. You don't live in the shadows anymore. You are clear because of what the shadow taught you. And sometimes, getting clear makes you want to move, to say sorry, to fix, not to get rid of the past, but to fill empty spaces with love. Your desire to make things right becomes a part of your healing, even if the other person never forgives you or the door never opens again. Because control doesn't help heal guilt. It's fixed by being honest. The idea that identity is empty is another important idea from Buddhism. You are not a fixed self. You're not all the mistakes you've made. You're not stuck in one place. You are a living thing, always changing. In other words, healing is not a one-time event. It's something that happens all the time. Every breath is a chance to come back, to answer, to care. It's not the same as forgetting. It means remembering something different. Not as a bad thing, but as a changing point. Not as proof that you failed, but as the start of being more honest. When you don't try to hide your sorrow, it becomes holy. It helps you pay more attention when you listen. How to tell the truth more often. How to be kinder to yourself and to other people in your life. So, if you have to, let sorrow rise tonight. But don't react with shame or fear. React with love. Let it talk. Let everyone see it. Then it should be held, not by punishment, but by being there. You're not your past. Right now you are. This breath. Being aware of this and learning to hold the weight of yesterday with kind hands is important. The road goes on from these hands, not toward erasing, but toward integrating. Not to fix things that can't be fixed, but to live each day so that yesterday doesn't define the future. When you learn to deal with regret without shame and with gentle presence, and when you realize that being aware of even the worst mistakes can make them less painful, something gentler is left behind. Things are getting less dramatic. The effort starts to slow down. The stories stop being important. This moment is all that's left. Not a big step forward, not a big surprise. There was only the sound of breathing, the body's weight on the ground, the feeling of just being living, not having to be anyone else. This is where a lot of people miss the road, because the mind is taught to look for meaning in strange things. It looks for peak events and waits for a loud shift to show that things are changing. But Buddhists believe that the greatest peace is not in the heights, but in the simple things we keep stepping over, the everyday things we forget to notice. Forgetting is not the same as failing. It's a habit, the habit of moving quickly. When you think that real life is just around the corner, that peace will come when the dishes are clean, the email is gone, and the big idea is clear. But tomorrow isn't where wholeness lives. There's no need to hide behind a perfect version of yourself. It's right here, in the water that's running off your hands, in the warm tea before taking a sip. Right now, you stand at the door and take a moment to think before going outside. These are not things that get in the way of the road. They show the way. Mindfulness in Buddhism says that everything becomes practice when the focus is brought back to the present moment, not with effort, but with care, not in a strict way, not with a list of mindful things to do, but with a gentle turn toward what is already there. To find the holy, you don't have to go up a rock. Stick with what you're doing for as long as it takes you to feel it. It's like praying when you fold your clothes. Everyone felt something in every piece. It feels soft when you touch it. As you work, your breath moves slowly, not in a hurry to finish or lost in thought, but just being there. And something strange and beautiful takes place inside that being. You feel like you belong, whole. It's not because the job is special, but because you are finally doing it. It's an act of presence to wash the dishes, how hot or cold the water is, how much the plate weighs, the repeated quiet sound, the lack of hurry. Here, there is no knowledge to earn. There is only the fullness of this moment, seen without any other thoughts. When the mind sees this, it stops fighting life. The search for something else ends. It touches down. When you walk slowly without a goal, it's like meditating. With each step, you arrive. Every step is a sign that life is not somewhere else. You end your walk to get somewhere. You walk around to feel the ground, to pay attention to how your arms move, to hear what's going on around you. It's not magical. This is normal. Mindfulness, on the other hand, makes the everyday shine. The mind fights against this ease. It says, that can't be enough. And it wants big actions to show what it means, in very interesting ways. Meaning is not lost, though. We just tend to look too far ahead, which hides it. Being mindful brings you back. It's not to a better life, it's to life itself. Remembering this is good for you in some way, because most of our pain doesn't come from the present moment, but from the stories we tell ourselves about it, the thoughts about what needs to happen, the stress of having to be more useful, advanced, and wise. Now that you look at what's really here, the pressure goes away. You don't have to be anyone for the moment. You are only asked to be there. This technique gives comfort even when you are in pain. Not because being aware gets rid of pain, but because it changes how you deal with it. To feel the breath going in and out, even though your body hurts. Even if your heart is heavy, pay attention to the sounds around you. Being present doesn't mean being perfect. It only takes a desire to do it. It changes how you eat too, not just a way to stay alive, but also a way to show care. You taste more, you chew more slowly. You pay attention to how the body gets food. The meal stops being a distraction and starts meeting your wants, even if it's easy, even if it's not busy. Mindfulness in everyday situations brings you back to the present moment. Not time on the clock, but time as it felt. 5 minutes can feel like a long time when you're in the present moment. Rich, like you really did something. And if you're not paying attention, hours can go by with no sense of relationship. Mindfulness is a gift because it gives you back time. It does this by making life smaller instead of bigger. Being close changes how you feel about yourself. You become aware of when you're running through the day without fully experiencing it. Sometimes you reach for your phone even though you don't need it because you've lost touch with the present. You don't judge, you just come back, over and over. That's not what this is about. It's about going back. It's possible to remember, to come back through mindfulness. Being present makes everything better, even talks. You stop listening to answer. To hear, you start to listen. You pay attention to how someone talks, the way they looked, the breaks in between words. Suddenly, the link gets stronger, not by what is said, but by how open you are to receiving it. Being aware of this doesn't make things easy, but it makes it bigger. It doesn't take away sadness, happiness, or anger. It lets you feel them without dulling or enhancing them. It brings you back to your body, to the air, to the moment that never ended, but you forgot how to feel it. It changes even when you rest. Real rest. Not the kind of rest that means falling asleep when you're tired. The ones where you don't have a screen to lie on, not making any noise, in which you let the body get soft. Don't think about it anymore. Let the moment hold you, without having to explain or get anything done. Mindfulness that doesn't ask for anything new is the most beautiful thing about it. Your life doesn't need to change. You don't need to change the things you do. You just need to pay a little more attention to what's already here. A little more care. That small change makes everything possible. You start to see that there are no small things when you pay attention to the little things. Every time is whole. Each breath is a part of life, coming and going. And once you feel that, you know that waking is not somewhere else. It's right here, in the tea, out in the dishes, as I walked around the block in peace. So tonight, just enjoy the day. Just take a deep breath. Becoming more skilled means just being here, not to change into anything, but to know what it's like to be whole already. From that point of completeness, the road goes on, not to something bigger, but to something closer. Something we see so often that we forget to see it. But when we do, we know this is it. It was always that way. Once you understand that doing simple things like drinking tea and folding laundry can make you feel more complete than having 1,000 unrealized goals, something else starts to appear, almost without you even trying. An easy change in how you see other people. The person who walks by you without saying anything. The phone caller. The person who skips lines. The loved one you didn't understand. Your existence, which was inside you before, is now beginning to reach out to others. Not as work, but as something that just happens. You meet the world with the same softness that let you feel the warmth of your own breath. And a deep change happens. The line between you and other people starts to fade. The idea of a different self starts to fade. And from that melting comes kindness, which isn't just a moral quality, but also a way to get back to being whole. It's common for Buddhist lessons to start with being aware of yourself, but that's not where they end. The road gets longer. It shows that inner peace is incomplete without other people, that the walls we build inside are the same walls we see outside. At that point, when we stop guarding the small idea of me, we start to feel the world's pain and beauty as our own. This isn't a metaphor. It's a change in how we see things. One that breaks down loneliness and shows a greater truth. No one heals by themselves. Feeling sorry for someone is not the same thing as compassion. It's not being better. It means being ready to face other people's pain without running away. And caring about other people's pain does something we didn't expect. It starts to heal our own. Because a lot of the inner split comes from not being connected to anything, from the idea that we are the only ones going through hard times, due to the habit of comparing things instead of making connections. But that illusion falls apart when compassion moves outward. When you feel what someone else feels, you change in some way. Something brings people together. This is where practicing loving kindness, metta, goes beyond just a way to meditate. It opens the way to unity. You start by saying things to yourself like, "May I be safe." Then you give them to someone you care about, then to a third party, then to a tough person, then to all living things everywhere. Not to fix them, so as to include them. And every time you do it, you unite something inside you more, not as careful, more complete. Being compassionate is strange because the more you give, the better you feel. Giving isn't a waste, it's a way to say thank you. You see yourself in other people. Their anger matches yours. Their happiness makes you feel better. Their pain doesn't seem strange anymore. You start to care in ways you didn't expect as this awareness grows. Not out of duty, but as a reply. You start to take care of their wound the same way you would take care of your own. This gets rid of the subtle self-centeredness that comes up a lot when people practice spirituality. People often look to themselves for comfort, but they forget that pain doesn't end at the surface. Being whole isn't something you create. It's something you find when you let down your guard. And kindness is what brings them down. The way you see things, not just how you feel. It doesn't matter how short this shift is, it can change you. You can really see the person behind you when you hold the door open, seeing sadness in a cashier's eyes and sending them well wishes in silence. Being patient with someone who lets you down, not because they deserve it, but because you know what it's like to fail. These aren't big things. They're not big changes. They all make the false line between self and other less strong. This point of view is especially strong when relationships are hard. The urge is to keep others safe, to blame, to hold a grudge that gets stronger over time. You might ask, can I see their pain even if they caused mine? This doesn't mean letting bad things happen. It means not carrying hate with you. It means letting humanity free you from being the bad guy or the good guy. Since both jobs are heavy, kindness makes them feel better by telling you that everyone is still learning. Everyone tries, even if they fail. This doesn't make it easy to be kind. It takes strength, the power to stay open even when it's safer to shut down. The ability to quiet your ego when it wants to talk. But when you choose kindness, your mind reacts less each time. It makes the heart feel less scared, and the space between you and other people gets smaller until it's gone. You don't need any special skills to do this. Pay attention to it. When you stop before answering, it starts. When you ask, what's going on inside them? Before getting upset about it. When you don't need to win, it gets deeper. When you don't have to be right. When you realize that the person in front of you is also carrying weights you can't see. Being compassionate changes how we deal with our own pasts as well. We can start to understand how our own mistakes were caused by the same things that drive other people: pain, fear, and a lack of understanding. And this kindness that looks back leads to forgiveness, not the shy kind, but the smart kind, the kind that can see clearly but still decides to smooth out, to let go of, to keep going without poison. On this road, even people you don't know teach you: the noisy next-door neighbor, the cranky driver, the person on the internet who says mean things. That is, instead of reacting, you think, they must be suffering, and you act on that thought. You can feel it. Even when they do things that are hard to accept, you remember that they are people. This turns into a mirror. You can do that for yourself if you can do it for them. You will feel less like a separate being going through a cold world as you do this more and more. You feel like you're a part of something bigger, not a thought or a plan, but a live web of experiences. You can see that your happiness isn't all yours. Your pain isn't either. That even when we act like we don't, we rise and fall together. And that balance is open to everyone. It spreads to other people through the level of your care. There are days when it will seem impossible to be kind, when your heart is raw or shut down. That's also fine. The practice keeps going. To be kind, sometimes the best thing you can do is not act out, not make the harm worse. Take a deep breath, and in that quiet respect and restraint, something starts to heal again. Avoiding other people won't help you feel this whole. It comes from being present with them and turning toward them. Of course, with limits, but also with interest. You don't need to know everything. Stop looking away right now. Stop putting people into me and them. When you do that, something opens up. Because caring for someone other than yourself makes you feel bigger, not in pride, but in what it means. You can feel that your heart has room, chances to mess up, due to differences, for all the things that make being human hard and beautiful at the same time. So tonight, let one more person be in your mind, someone you care about, someone you have trouble with, someone you will never meet. Hold them while you take a deep breath, not having to change anything, not because you want them to be different. Feel what happens when you share your wholeness instead of keeping it to yourself. After sharing, the road goes on, not in solitude, but in connection. Love is not a show, it's a memory. It's not an escape. It's a return to the web of life, where no one is truly different. Something inside of you loosens up when kindness spreads to include others, and care, instead of control, blurs the line between self and world. It wasn't a big change. It was more like the need to keep things neat slowly fell away. Never try to fix other people. You no longer have to make every part of your story perfect. Then there is silence and a quiet realization. Maybe things aren't meant to be finished the way the mind wants them to be. Maybe whole doesn't always mean complete. It's possible that the cracks, missing pieces, and times where nothing is clear are not mistakes. It's possible that they are invites to feel, not to fix, to see, not to seal. This is where the sense of leaving things unfinished starts to show itself, not as an admission of defeat, but as a holy point of view. The Zen tradition has a strong way of seeing this truth through the lens of wabi-sabi, an art style and way of looking at the world that values the beauty of things just the way they are, broken, temporary, and unfinished. It's not just broken china or wood that has been worn down by time. It's about how to live. A way of seeing things that stops trying to be perfect and starts to accept what is naturally incomplete. The broken bowl doesn't lose its value in wabi-sabi, it gets character. The old cloth isn't broken, it has a story to tell. It's more true what you hear between the words than what you say. The world we live in now teaches us the opposite. Everything needs to be finished, cleaned, and made better. People teach you to finish what you begin, make things better, and cover up things that don't look right. The price for that way of thinking, though, is constant pressure inside. A war of sorts with truth. Since life isn't clean, it opens up with edges, with breaks. There were breaks, and the more you want it to be whole and even, the farther away it seems. Giving up on something doesn't mean you're not responsible for it. It means changing the way you relate to power. It means realizing that you don't have to answer all of your questions right away, that some feelings don't go away when they're supposed to. You can still be healed while it's still going on. You shouldn't rush through loss, change, or not knowing what will happen next. Things can move because you let them, and letting go is what makes room for real happiness. Wabi-sabi is not a neutral style. It pays close attention. It hears the quiet ticks of time. It appreciates the worn-in look. It likes the unevenness of things that were never meant to be even. In your own life, this means recognizing your journey not just in its high points, but also in its low points. It means treating the parts of yourself that aren't finished with the same care you give to the parts that do. The mind often wants things to end. It wants the whole story, the whole loop. But a lot of life doesn't work that way. There are no clear ends in relationships as they grow. Goals change in the middle. Years go by with questions still unanswered. And the wabi-sabi view doesn't see this as a failure. It sees it as normal. just as pretty, as real. It says, "This is a life that is still building up." What gives it life is that very thing. There is kindness in not having everything. Kind that makes you want to be close because it's true, not because something is wrong. A slightly crooked cup that was made by hand feels warmer in your hand. A song that ends in a way that you didn't expect stays in your heart longer. When a talk doesn't end, there's room to listen more deeply. You begin to understand that being unfinished doesn't take away from meaning, it adds to it. This point of view changes how you feel about your past too. Not every story will end with a happy ending. Not every hurt has a good lesson to teach. We will always remember some things. Feelings of sorrow will stay with you for a long time. You can make room for integration, though, when you stop calling for closure. You let those parts of the story be there, not as embarrassing gaps, but as important openings. The need to arrive can be a trap, even in spiritual works. You wait for things to become clear. You expect peace when you relax. And if it doesn't happen the way you thought it would, your mind marks the session as unfinished. But wabi-sabi helps you remember that being there is enough. It is holy to show up, listen, and breathe with what is, even if it feels unfinished. This way of seeing also changes how you interact with other people. You no longer need to wait for them to change. Stop making them stick to a deadline they never agreed to. You start to see the beauty in them now, even though they are hard to understand. Even though they have holes, you get to love people the way you love old books, with their worn edges, unfinished stories, and the marks of real life on every page. Wabi-sabi can also change the way you think creatively. Stop changing too much. You need to stop taking the life out of things. You start to believe in the line that isn't perfect, the edge that isn't smooth, and the random beauty. You know that being creative isn't about getting perfect results. It's about showing what's really true. And the truth doesn't always come in its perfect form. When you use this awareness in your normal life, it makes planning a little less rigid. Things will not always get done. Every day won't feel like it's over. Some jobs will keep piling up. There will be things that need to be talked about again. You stop seeing this as a failure and start seeing it as flow, wave-like, like the seasons. Not every door has to shut. There are some things that should stay open. This point of view can also help heal your inner judge. The part of you that checks, contrasts, and pushes. When you realize that being incomplete is a part of reality and not a flaw, that reviewer loses its power over you. You stop thinking that being perfect is what makes you valuable. You start to live from a different place that trusts the process more than the result. With this view, even death looks different, not as the perfect ending to a story, but as the natural end of a part that was never meant to be all the way through. The things that were not said, the projects weren't finished, the love that stays. Everything adds to the puzzle, not the mistake. Forget about being afraid of the end because you think it's where people will judge you. Instead, see it as part of the flow that made everything else possible. You can start by noticing how tense you feel when you're trying to get things done, how frustrating it is when a talk never ends, the guilt that comes with putting off a project, the pain you feel when your feelings don't match what you thought they would be. Take a deep breath instead of responding. Stay put. Let the moment not end, and notice how the space changes you. You may start to see wabi-sabi in your everyday life. The old chair that still fits you, the broken mug where you drink your tea in the morning, the picture that's a little worn but brings back memories. Each one is whole because of its flaws, not because it has them. Let them tell you that you are not waiting to be fixed either. You are already a part of the whole, even as you grow. Allow this spirit to guide your meditation. Leave some loose ends in your partnerships. Let the marks of being human show up in your art. Do not rush. Start to feel. Listen to what's already enough, even if it's still being worked on. And tonight, leave a little space between everything. Stop the stories in your head in the middle of a sentence. Don't try to control your breath as it comes and goes. Don't try to catch your thoughts as they move away. Let what isn't said be okay. Let what's not done rest. Allow the unfinished to teach you. From that state of not being completed, the road goes on, not toward completion, but toward a fuller presence. Not with answers, but with respect for what hasn't been said or answered, but is still beautiful. You can feel a different kind of peace once you learn to live with things that aren't finished and let go of the need to finish every story and line. This isn't the peace of control, but the peace of letting go. That kind that doesn't depend on getting everything fixed, solved, or settled. With this kind of understanding, one can start to hear something deeper. A beat that didn't need to be perfect. A move that has been around for a long time. The air. As an idea, no, not as a method, but as a living thread that connects all of them, keeping the present moment together without trying or needing attention, but giving everything when it is seen. Here is where the process goes back to its roots, not in ideas or thoughts, but in the breath itself, the only thing that is always now. In Buddhism, the breath has always been seen as the way to get back to what is real. Not because breath is unique, but because it's real. It's not false. It isn't pretend. It goes up and down. It comes and goes. It doesn't matter if you understand or are confused. No matter if you're sad or happy, it makes you feel welcome. The breath stays easy even when everything else is noisy, when the mind goes around in circles and the heart feels tangled. Goodbye, yes, and that ease is the first step toward going back home. Controlling your breath is not what mindful breathing is all about. It's not about making it more pious, quiet, or deep. It means becoming aware of what is already going on, the breath in, the letting out of breath, the break in the middle, the body getting bigger, seeing the body fall. This is life as it really is. This is you without the story. Something starts to change when you pay attention to this quiet movement. It's not the breath that changes, but you start to see what you've been missing. You've been breathing your whole life. But how many of those breaths have you felt? How many have gone by without being noticed because of thoughts, responsibilities, and other things that needed attention? Reclaiming those times is what mindful breathing is all about. To say, I'm here now, and that's enough. The breath doesn't need any work. You can trust it. You don't have to do anything. It only tells you to come back. This return is strong, because you can't move as easily when your breath is your anchor. Every fear, want, or old story that tries to pull you out of the moment no longer has power over you. The breath brings you back. To your life, not just to your body, to the spot where things really are happening, not in the past, not going to happen. However, One of the best things about breathing as a technique is how easy it is to do. There's no need for a temple. It's not necessary to be quiet. You don't need to spend time on it. You can catch your breath anywhere, like in the middle of a meeting, while waiting in line at the store, or while doing the dishes. It goes with you. It stays there. You come out of the trance every time you notice it, even if it's only for a second. You keep going back to the moment that's enough. This coming back becomes a routine over time. You start to live from your breath instead of your reactions. You know when you've lost touch with yourself, when you're angry, worried, or scared, and instead of being swept away, you stop. You can feel the breath in. You ride the breath out. You loosen your grip on the need to be in charge. And as things get softer, clarity comes back. Not as something you try to catch, but as something that was already there. Mindful breathing also brings you back in touch with your body. A lot of people only think about their bodies when something goes wrong. But the breath brings you back to the chest and belly, where life slowly moves in a regular way. You start to see how your feelings show up in your breath, how stress makes it weak, how peace makes it stronger, how sadness makes it shake. It's not just a habit. The breath turns into a language, a way that your body always tells you the truth, even when your mind tries to lie. As you listen, your kindness grows. Stop telling your breath to be calm all the time. When it needs to be, you let it get ragged. When you're scared, you let it be sharp. When you're sad, you let it be just barely there. You don't fix it, you just go with it. It's like having a friend over. This being there is what starts to heal, not changing the breath itself, but how you relate to it. This method also shows that things change over time. There is no air. They all come to an end. Still, another one always comes. This beat teaches you to trust. It teaches you how to let go. You don't hold on to the breathe in. You do not fight the breath. You let. This letting go starts to seep into the rest of your life. When a talk is over, you let it go. When names aren't useful anymore, you let them go. When it's time to give up, you let go of power. All of this can be learned through the breath, not through words. You don't need to rush as much when you trust your breath. You need to stop asking questions. Stop trying to take charge. You take a deep breath and let things happen. Because you can feel the stability beneath it all now. You know how to get back, even when things go wrong, even when I'm very upset, as long as the way isn't too clear. This coming back can be the basis of everything. Not your phone, but your breath. You face problems with your breath, not just your thoughts. Its beat makes you fall asleep instead of worrying. The air is no longer just a tool, it's a home. Something to tell you that you are a part of this moment, no matter what it brings. In a quiet way, the breath also lets you know that nothing is missing. The mind loves to make up stories about how much it doesn't have, about what's wrong, of what you need to do before you can rest. But the smell says something different. It tells you to stay here. This is enough, and you're alive. You can feel it, even if you only listen for a second. How perfect it is, how full it is. The presence that is holy, even without anything else being present. It's not exciting to breathe with awareness. It won't make anyone happy. You will be different after it. Slowly, really, not loud. It will help you be more present, kind, and centered. It will show you that the present moment, this very breath in and out, is already complete, already at home. Let go of everything else tonight. Put all of your plans, memories, and things you need to do in the background. Pay attention to this breath as well. Not as a way to do things, not as a goal, but as a get-together, right now, life-wise, with the old you that never went away. After that reunion, the road goes on, but this time it's not a chase, it's a return. There is no perfect future. Instead, you should focus on the beating heart of life that keeps pulling you back to a place where nothing is missing. There is no finish line after more than 3 hours of exploring the deepest parts of the human heart. There is only a beginning, a steady, quiet return to something that was never gone. It was just lost. You've learned that wholeness is not something you earn, chase, or make up through each lesson, from self-compassion to silence to incompleteness. It's what's left over after you stop running, when you stop changing things about yourself to make them perfect, when your heart isn't split into should-be and shouldn't-be parts. The Dharma has never asked you to grow. It has only ever asked you to come home. Every subject, breath, and pause wasn't a lesson on how to fix yourself. They were all lessons on how to remember who you are. That the pieces that are broken are still holy. That the breaks make up the flow. That you're whole even if you're not done. And that compassion for yourself and for others isn't just a nice thing to have, it's a way to break down barriers. Being whole is quiet. It doesn't come with cheers. It comes in quietly, like letting out a breath, in the comfort of everyday things, in the choice to stay. You tell yourself, this is enough, as you listen to your breath. What moved you during these hours? If a line, a silence, or a moment gave you something you didn't expect, please let us know in the comments. Tell me what you remember. Other people also find their way in these thoughts. Do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you want more lessons like this one, kind, honest, and based in practice. That way, even when life seems crazy, you'll never miss a clear moment. You're already whole, not since you're done with this, but because you stopped trying to be someone else at some point. That should be how you feel when you go to sleep tonight. That should be the truth you have when you wake up tomorrow.